The call to order for regular commission meeting in the city of St. Pete Beach is 6 o'clock, March 28th, 23. So please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The city clerk to the roll call, please.
Vice.
Is that better? Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Please do the roll call.
Vice Mayor Grouse.
Here.
Commissioner Grill.
Here.
Commissioner Frislowski.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum. Before we go into the oaths of office, I would like to thank Mayor Johnson for his service, and on behalf of the city, we have a small token of appreciation for you and all that you've contributed here.
Thank you. That means I can take this with me. I don't have to look under my chair and look for a sticker to take the centerpiece or anything. Okay. Anyway, I do want to make a couple of comments. Really, it's been my honor and a privilege to be mayor for the last 6 years. I look back at what we've done, and I'm impressed. I mean, we did a ton of infrastructure work over the last 6 years. We did, road projects, the sewer project, the library, drainage projects. We spent $47 million plus just on infrastructure. And we got all that accomplished in the 6 years, and we not only doubled our reserves for a rainy day, but we also kept the millages the same. So that, tax rate did not go up, which I think is remarkable. And when I compare it to what some of the other municipalities in this county have done, because I spent a lot of time with those mayors, and it makes me proud to be able to represent this place because we have done so much. We also, at the same time we were doing that, we were digitizing and electronically taking care of our parking situation. That, and also adding a microtransit service to try and alleviate some of the congestion and everything. So I think we've done an awful lot of advancement in planning. We established a strategic plan to get us to 2030, and that's being revised again because we're making progress on the items we established in that. We also put a resiliency program together, which is part of the reason we have the reserves we have, and that's designed to get us to 2050. So those of us that may still be here then, good luck with that. So anyway, the thing about that is it was really a team effort. I'm so proud of everybody that's been involved in this. I mean, it starts, of course, with the commission and, city manager's staff, all of our direct reports, and then, the department directors right down to the guys that are out there on the streets keeping this place looking nice. I mean, it's really a team effort. And I got to thank them for all they've done these last 6 years because it's been great to watch, and it's really heartwarming to me to see that's being done. So to continue, I think I want to just thank them all. Thank you so much for allowing me to do this, and thanks for all your cooperation. And I'm going to take my award and go home. So thank you, everybody.
Your presentations, right? Yep.
Okay, we're going to continue with the oath of office. I'm going to start with District 2, Commissioner Grill. Right hand. Your right hand. Okay, so repeat after me. I, Mark Grill,
I, Mark Grill,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a full-time resident
that I am a full-time resident
of the district in which I am about to serve,
in the district
in which I am
in which
about
I am
to
about to
serve, that I will support,
that I will support,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and government
and government
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Florida,
and of the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly qualified
to hold office
to hold office
under the Constitution
under the Constitution
of the state,
of the state,
and that I will
and that I will
well
well
and faithfully
and faithfully
perform the duties
perform the duties
of Commissioner
of Commissioner
on which I am about to enter.
in which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner of District 4, Chris Marone. Jenny, can you help me out? I'm gonna have Jenny go first. Yeah, Jenny's coming. She'll be my Bible holder. Your right hand. I, Chris Marone,
I, Chris Marone,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a full-time resident
that I am a full-time resident
of the district
of the district
in which I am about to serve,
in which I'm about to serve,
that I will support,
that I will support,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and government
And government
of the United States
of the United
and
States,
the state of Florida,
the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified
that I'm duly qualified
to hold office
to hold office
under the Constitution of the state,
under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will
that I will
well and faithfully
and faithfully
perform the duties
perform the duties
of Commissioner
of Commissioner
on which I am about to enter.
on which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Adrian Petrilla. You better get used to it. Okay, so raise your right hand. And yes, there you go. Okay, you ready? I, Adrian Petrilla,
I, Adrian Petrilla,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a full-time resident
that I am a full-time resident
of the city of St. Pete Beach,
of the city of St. Pete Beach,
that I will support,
that I will support,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and government
and government
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Florida,
and of the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly qualified
to hold office
to hold office
under the Constitution
under the Constitution
of the state of Florida,
of the state of Florida,
and that I will
and that I will
well and faithfully
and faithfully
perform the duties of mayor
that I will perform the duties of mayor
on which I am about to enter.
on which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
That's all prepared, huh?
You're prepared.
Thank you. All right, as vice mayor, would anybody like to say anything before we close this portion of the meeting?
Sure, I would. Thank you, Vice Mayor. First, I would like to say thank you to the residents of District 2 for your continued confidence and support in me and my efforts to continue to make St. Pete Beach the great place that it is, that we know and that we all love. I will continue to support you and the residents of the city as we continue to move forward. I look forward to continuing my work with the city staff, who is extremely supportive in working together with the other members of the commission, Vice Mayor Grouse, Commissioner Frizlowski, and I would like to extend my congratulations and welcome to our new members, Commissioner Marone and Mayor Petrilla. Second, while we know what happened over the last 6 weeks, I'm calling on all of us, residents, businesses alike, to put the divisiveness and negativity that we all saw, it's that seemingly penetrating the city, put this all behind us, to come together to work for the benefit of the city, and it's the only way that we'll truly be successful. I fear that if we don't, we'll fail, and if we fail, St. Pete Beach will fail, and we cannot let that happen. Finally, I want to thank all of you that came tonight to show your support for me. I really appreciate that you came out, and of course, thank you to my wife for putting up with all of my phone calls and meetings. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'd
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting sine die. Oh, did you want to say something?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
First of all, I want to say thank you to the residents and voters of St. Pete Beach. I appreciate your trust in electing me as your next mayor. I want to thank my wife for putting up with, 3 or 4 months of a very tough election season. And I also want to echo what Commissioner Grill just said. I think it is important for us to come together as a community, as a commission, and I personally look forward to working with all the commissioners and the city staff, the city attorney, the city clerk. And I'm looking forward to the next 3 years. I think St. Pete Beach is one of the best places to live in the world, and I think together we can only make it better. So thank you to the voters and the residents of St. Pete Beach.
Good evening. I'm probably the only one up here who no one voted for and who hasn't served before in this capacity. So I intend on working hard to earn all of the residents' trust, both in District 4 and the city of St. Pete Beach at large. I'd like to thank my predecessor, Melinda Pletcher, who has tirelessly worked in this spot for, I want to say, close to 9 years, and has worked behind the scenes and in other capacities to provide a service to this city. So, thank you.
Anything else?
That's all.
All right, would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting sine die.
Okay, pass.
Is there any second to that?
Second.
Commissioner Grill?
Do we need a roll
Yes,
call?
I'm doing roll call.
Yes.
Commissioner Grill? Commissioner Frizlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grouse?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we call to order the regular commission meeting of the same city of St. Pete Beach on Tuesday, March 28th. It is 6:12 p.m. City clerk? City clerk, if you do a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Grouse?
Here.
Commissioner Grill?
Here.
Commissioner Frizlowski?
Here.
Commissioner Marone?
Here.
Mayor Petrilla?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, the first item on the agenda is the agenda,
Approval?
approval of the agenda.
Approval?
Mr. Mayor,
Sorry, go ahead. I'm going to withdraw an item, so
okay.
maybe it's the same one, I don't know.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm going to withdraw item 7E from the agenda and move that to, a future agenda.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor,
7E.
7E.
7E, like Edward.
Okay.
I have a couple of items I'd like to change in the agenda. The first one is I'd like to move item 6C, the operations yard wall expansion from the consent agenda, and make it an action item. I don't know if it becomes the new 7E or a 7F, so we can have some discussion on that one. Second, I'd like to move item 8A, the second reading of the beach ordinance, I'd actually like to move that completely out of tonight's agenda to a separate workshop or a separate second reading meeting, whatever is the appropriate title to put on it. And there's two reasons I want to do this. This is a very complex topic and a very large scope. I know we have many, many people here who want to speak on this item tonight. Certainly, we need to give the new commissioners time to come up to speed. We have two new commissioners tonight who are sitting, looking at this ordinance in their official capacity now for a very short period of time. And we have many residents and businesses providing us with input. So I think spending dedicated time in a separate meeting on this subject would allow us to focus on it better. The beach, to me, and I've said this before, is very, very important. The beach is in our city's name. That's why we live in St. Pete Beach. And I want to make sure that we take the time to do this right. I've got two others, and then we can come back, I guess, and we can have discussion on it. I'd like to also remove item 9A from the agenda. And item 9A is a vote on accepting election results. I do not believe that this is an item for us to vote on by ordinance. We've delegated this to Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections. I don't know why we would vote on it. It's not as if we would have a vote either way, so why would we put this on the agenda? There's no statutory reason for us to do that. And then finally, I'd like to add a discussion item on Duke Energy and how they work and their work in the city. So those are the four changes that I would propose.
All right. Do we have a motion to,
Mr. Mayor?
I also have one other change I'd like to suggest before we move forward.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that item 8B is a companion item to 8A.
You're right.
So if you're withdrawing 8A, might as well just withdraw 8B.
Yes,
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
I would also like to suggest a minor change to move item 7C, which is the election of the vice mayor, up before 7A, because when we make the appointments, there is some relationships there that I think would make sense. So if that's okay.
Yes.
any other items? All right, do we have a motion to amend the agenda as,
So moved.
Second?
City Clerk, roll call, please? Sorry, vote.
Commissioner Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frislowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grouse?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
That was a little bit too easy with all those changes.
I know.
Mayor, if it's okay, I would just like to say something about the beach ordinance, because we're a little bit mixed on that. We have a lot of people that came out that probably want to voice their opinion on it, but I do agree with Commissioner Grill that I had a bunch of people calling me up today, and I just jam-packed with my schedule, and I couldn't meet with them, so I think this gives us all a little bit of time to talk with others that, you know, sometimes this happens, you get your agenda and people wait till the day before, the day of. And so I hope everyone that came specifically for it is understanding that it's a big issue and that this will just give everybody a little bit more time to talk with us individually or to read it if they haven't had a chance to read it. We're getting comments from people that it was obvious they didn't even read it. So I think if people have a chance to read it, they'll get some of their own questions answered. So with that, that's why I supported this.
And I just want to say I agree with both the commissioners. I also had a lot of phone calls and emails from residents and business owners, and I really do think that we need to take a closer look at this, and we might need to do another workshop, not only with like you say, the Beach Stewardship Committee, but also with some business owners and residents also, to make sure that we get this right. There is a lot to it.
So as a new commissioner, I'll just say this. There's a lot. This is incredibly comprehensive. This is what I would consider like an omnibus bill. This is legislation, and it's incredibly detailed. There's a lot of nuance there. There are definitions that need to be worked on and worked on and worked on in every section. I see every section as an ordinance inside the ordinance, its own ordinance to some degree, although I understand that they're going to be all packed under the same ordinance number and the same act. So I've read it, but I need time to digest it and work through it with the residents. I need a workshop on it so I can hear from council on the hard work that they've done and get their input, especially from a legal standpoint, as this, I consider this legislation as a legislative process goes forward. Secondly, with regards to this resolution on the election, just as a matter of housekeeping, and that this never comes back up, because I don't see it as a necessary exercise. What I see is that all we need maybe is an announcement from the clerk after every election that it's been certified by the Election Commission, and we accept the certification. That's it.
I agree.
So I don't think we should ever encounter this again, unless anybody thinks we should.
You agree with that, City Clerk?
Yeah, so I actually had discussions about, this process is basically me just repeating what's been done, which is really hard for me to even say, right? Because that should never be a valid reason.
Right.
But having not been exposed to elections in this capacity, I just thought, well, maybe there's something that I'm not educated on at this point, right? But where I came from, the city clerk would read it at the beginning before the oath of office for the new, he would just read the certified results, which I think is what Commissioner Marone is suggesting. That way, and while I get the information from the supervisor of elections and it's maintained and it's permanent record keeping, having it on the record in a meeting is appropriate, and to be read is in my opinion, the appropriate avenue.
Okay.
So to effectuate that, so that it gets repeated time after time, how do you want to do that? Is that something that needs to be codified in the clerk's office?
I mean, you telling me and I'm putting it in the minutes, that's good enough for me.
Okay.
Personally, and my staff, but of course it's up to you all what you want. I'm hearing that that's the consensus, and that's good enough for me.
Okay.
And it's good enough for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I could, Mayor, just so we're perfectly clear about the beach ordinance per se, procedurally, and the posture that we're in right now is it has been advertised for first reading, and it was never voted on at first reading, so technically it says second reading, but it's really only the adoption hearing. So if you want to send it back to a workshop, because I hear workshop, and then you wouldn't be taking any action on it at a workshop, you're not allowed to. So I think maybe some direction. I mean, do you want to wait on that and decide later whether you want to workshop it, and then we would have to start the advertisement process all over again? Amber, I don't know if you have something else.
Do you mean by when you say advertisement, to me that means two different things. One is when you publish it on the agenda, that's
Right.
advertisement, right? Is that what you're referring to?
Well-
Because it hasn't been placed in the Tampa Bay Times, which is the legal way to do things when you want a public hearing and adoption, because we're not at the adoption point yet.
So I'm just curious if, okay, so you're here, right now it's before you in what I would say is first reading or as first reading. So it hasn't gotten, you have to go to adoption reading in order to adopt it. But if you want to, in between first reading and adoption reading, have a workshop, I think that you probably should start if you workshop it, you probably should start the process over again, have first reading again after that.
Yeah,
I agree, that's, I think, what everybody's saying. We'll have a workshop,
Because I didn't-
then we'll have a first reading and a second reading, so it'll be kind of three opportunities
Okay.
I
for
think we
the
need to go
public.
back to start.
Correct. It hasn't been approved on first reading,
Right,
so.
first
it
reading, we
hasn't been
didn't have
approved, so.
first
So
formal
we got to go to first reading. Yeah.
Okay. Do we need it? Okay.
No, I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page on that, because where it stood procedurally is that it has, come before the commission, but it was never voted on. It was decided to, I would say, continued to the next meeting. So it was never voted on first meeting. So I think we're fine. We'll just schedule a workshop That way you get full attention on that subject matter for however long you want. You want to schedule another workshop, you can do that too. And then we'll start the process over again to get it in front of you as legislation for voting purposes.
I mean,
Yes, that was my intent.
Okay.
Moving it.
And I think that there's a lot of good things in this. So, I mean, I heard the comment start over. I'm not sure that doesn't mean to scrap what we have. I think
start the process over.
Yes, so I think there's a lot of good things, but the thing I like about a workshop is we have 2 new elected officials. We're going to get a lot of input just based on how many people called me today or emailed me today. And then we can give feedback to staff without worrying if it's substantial changes enough to have to do, another reading, that kind of a thing. So to me, we can get it in a good place after the workshop, then we can really move it forward to 2 readings. And
I see this as a template that we have in front of us, and we're operating off the template, not scratching the template
Right.
and redrafting.
Right.
Yeah, so.
No, it's good. I just want to make that clear to our attorney and the staff. I think there's a lot of good things.
Yeah.
I have comments. I'm sure all of you have comments, but
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Audience comments?
Jamie Levis.
Good evening. I'm going to talk really fast. My name is Jamie Levis. I live at 117 73rd Avenue. My husband and I also own a business, Sprinkles Ice Cream Shop, at 6870 Gulf Boulevard that we purchased in August of '22. Prior to buying and purchasing some signs for our shop, my husband called code enforcement and spoke with a woman in the office to determine we were interpreting the codes properly. She reviewed them with him. We spent over $500 on signs. Those signs were very successful for us and generate approximately $200 in additional revenue each day. 6 months later, on Saturday, January 28th, we actually thought our signs were stolen. We found, a police investigation found that it was code enforcement that took our signs. On Monday, January 30th, I came into code enforcement. They gave me back my signs. I asked them if they could review the codes with me. They were very professional, tried to review them. Side note, we have a very complicated, complex sign situation. Long story short, they really weren't able to give me any guidance. In that meeting, I suggested items that were not specifically listed as prohibited, but was told that even if a sign is not listed as prohibited, it is. I couldn't understand why down the road a few blocks, other businesses had the same signs I was willing to switch to. I was told that they're in a different district with different signage allowances. I also asked if I could apply for some sort of variance and was told specifically, you will absolutely not be given a variance on what you're asking for. I also was a little upset because was told that nobody in that office would have ever told me that what we were asking for was allowed, somewhat insinuating that we actually didn't speak to anybody in there, which we did. We later ended up finding out that the ordinances had changed, and therefore that's why we were in violation. Our signs were taken. On January 31st, I actually made a post on the Nextdoor app asking if any of my neighbors had any experience with the codes, because clearly I was struggling. On February 6th, Mark Grill, who is the commissioner for my shop district, reached out to me, asked if he could help me in any way. He was able, on February 16th, to give me the name of somebody in City Hall to speak to. On February 17th, I left a voicemail for that person. They never called me back. February 24th, I left another voicemail. They never called me back. I then happened to attend the Corey Avenue Street meeting and ran face-to-face with that person. She advised me that that was not the place to discuss it, but that she would get back to me, and I still did not get anything back. March 5th, Mr. Grill actually reached out again to ask me the status. I told him I hadn't heard anything. He was going to check again for me. I still didn't hear back from the city. On March 16th, I actually thought I was getting somewhere. I got a call from Lewis in code enforcement. He's always very pleasant. Said he was confirming my phone number for his manager to call me. He didn't say who the manager was, but that was March 16th. I never got a call again. Yesterday, March 27th, I called Lewis back to advise him that it's been almost another 2 weeks and whoever his manager is never called me. He called me today, left a voicemail for me saying his manager is the person that I've been leaving messages for and trying to get resolution with. So that's why I'm here, to hopefully get some advisement on how I can proceed with this situation. Okay.
So, City Manager, maybe we don't need to get into the nitty-gritty here. I know we had discussed this, and
Yeah, and
we have a new business owner who came forward for help, so can we make sure that they get the help they need for the signs? I know we have as Ms. Levis pointed out, we have a complicated sign ordinance. We are working to update the signs and simplify it. I think, if I remember, we have 22 different sign zones,
districts, yes.
districts, which just, we can look back at the history, it's just overly complicated. So we're working to simplify that. But I think in the short term, as a new business owner who came in, invested in the city, in this business, what we need to, how we can help the business owner to,
Yeah,
make sure the business is
If you leave your
successful.
name and phone number with the clerk, I will personally call you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Card.
Good evening. My name is Matt Card, and my wife and I live on Second Palm Point here in St. Pete Beach. We have lived in the neighborhood for 27 years and both grew up in St. Pete Beach. I am a board member of the Three Palms Point Neighborhood Association, representing over 160 tax-paying homes in the neighborhood. For those of you unfamiliar with the neighborhood, we are in District 2 and encompass all of the homes on 64th Avenue eastward from Gulf Winds Drive, most of Bay Street, and the 4 Palm Point streets that extend north and south from 64th Avenue. The Three Palms Point condos are not part of our association, but are very impacted by your decision on this issue. Our association has been operating consistently since we were established in 1991. I have my glasses on, much better now, thank you. I was struggling there, sorry. We have a very active neighborhood, and we are the group, along with our residents, that have set out 1,000 luminaries across our neighborhood every Christmas Eve for the past 51 years, inviting all in the city to come by and enjoy. Also, in 2021, our neighborhood was awarded first prize in the city's Light Up the Neighborhood contest. As you can see, we are committed to making our city and neighborhood a great place to be. And we have probably 10 or 12 of our residents here tonight. Before moving on to the reason I'm standing in front of you tonight, in the spirit of full transparency, I wanted to let you know that Commissioner Grill also lives in our neighborhood and held the role of president of our association for the past 2 years. But at our annual meeting last month, he is no longer a member of our board. We understand that his other commitments to the community that fill up his time. Tonight, I want to speak to you about Duke Energy's undergrounding of the electrical wiring in our neighborhood and the removal of the wood poles in that neighborhood. Since we have a new commissioner and mayor tonight, let me first congratulate you both on joining the commission and briefly go over our history in our neighborhood. The majority of Three Palms Point neighborhood was undergrounded when it was built back in the early 70s. No one has the history to know why the entire neighborhood wasn't undergrounded then. First Palm Point and North Second Palm Point were built with overhead utilities. The remaining streets east of Second Palm enjoy underground utilities. 6 months ago, back in September of 2022, before Hurricane Ian, Duke Energy came into our neighborhood and installed new, larger diameter wood poles next to existing poles as part of the Pasadena Infrastructure Hardening Project. The city manager stopped Duke from further work as Duke was supposed to present their undergrounding proposal and cost to the city before any work was started. So since September, we have been living with both old poles with existing wiring and the new empty, larger diameter poles. On the new poles that have been lying on the ground, one of the new poles have been lying on the ground in the right-of-way at the southwest corner of 64th Avenue and Second Palm Point South for the past 6 months. We were very disappointed to see the commission's actions at a recent commission meeting where there was a short discussion and then a move to decline the budgeted expense for all undergrounding activities, not only in our neighborhood, but across the city for years to come. A very large a very large portion of our residents were very upset and asked that we write to all the commissioners and requested that you instruct the city manager to hold off on this project until we could speak with you tonight. But no one responded to our email. Myself and our fellow residents, we do not understand why this decision was made, especially when the commission had unanimously approved and budgeted $1.7 million for undergrounding throughout the city. $340,000 per year between 2023 and 2027. You had previously approved spending some of these funds this year for undergrounding in District 1. And of course, undergrounding was performed in parts of Paso Grill during the upgrade over the past few years. We do understand the comments made by the commissioners. Why this neighborhood over others? But to us, the undergrounding of First Palm Point and the remainder of Second Palm Point and 64th Avenue makes sense to do so. Let me explain. If I could ask Scott to come up, he has a visual aid, might help kind of explain a little bit about where we are.
Do you want to try it? Do you want to try it on the camera?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to continue.
Ryan, can you use the camera?
As the majority of our neighborhood is already undergrounded, why not complete the rest of the neighborhood during the infrastructure hardening work being done by Duke Energy? This is especially true as Duke will be undergrounding both Bay Street and all of Gulf Winds Drive at their expenses. So why not complete the remaining areas of the neighborhood to beautify and enable a uniform look across the entire section of the city? That way, we would have a larger, contiguous section of the city undergrounded and improved. Let's look at some numbers. Our neighborhood, east of Bay Street, you can help with that, Scott, thank you, contains 150 single-family homes. Three Palms Point condos contains 198 units. All of these residents lose power if the overhead lines between Gulf Boulevard and Second Palm Point fail. So again, all residents in the neighborhood, including them condos, would lose power. 104 single-family homes who currently have their utilities underground lose power if the overhead lines at the west end of 64th Avenue fail. As I said, 198 condo units lose power if those lines fail. And the 46 single-family homes on First Palm, Second Palm Point also lose power. The remedy is to underground the high-voltage supply lines currently on 14 poles from Gulf Winds to Second Palm Point, and the residential lines serving those 46 homes on First and Second Palm Point. We believe there is no other project in St. Pete Beach worth bringing underground utilities to 46 homes, hardens the infrastructure of 348 residences. The 46 homes who benefit from the undergrounding are a mere 12% of the 340 total beneficiaries. You should not ignore this numerical advantage. The city has many taxpayer-funded beautification efforts underway, including replacing paved rights-of-way in front of homes with greenery, the business enhancement projects coordinated by the Chamber of Commerce. This undergrounding would be a key beautification effort that would not only enhance the look and feel of the neighborhood, but it would also improve the quality of lives for residents. It could also have positive impact on home valuations. Let's be honest. If Duke doesn't underground now and continues to install the new larger diameter poles and wiring, undergrounding will not be completed in our neighborhood for at least another generation. One last point. There's underneath that, could you put that other photo up? One last point. Here's a picture taken yesterday afternoon on 64th Avenue where Duke installed a new pole. I'm not sure if you can see, but let me take a moment to explain this. What Duke did, and will do on any new pole, is to move their electrical wiring from old pole to the new pole. Then they cut the pole down. So if you look right on the top of that tree, you'll see the old pole that's there. And they leave approximately 50% of the old pole. This has been done on First Palm and Second Palm Point just today. They were out there. They leave all of the old wirings belonging to other companies that pay rent to Duke to place their wires on the pole, such as Frontier, Spectrum, and others. On the old half pole, it could stay there for up to 6 months. If the other companies do not move their wires over the new poles, we understand that Duke moves ownership of the old poles to these other companies, and we are left with a pole and a half forever. We have this already on 67th Avenue here in St. Pete Beach, and maybe in other parts of the city. I am sure you would agree with me that this looks terrible, and we can't let this to continue. We are asking you to reconsider your decision. Please allocate the funds that were budgeted to underground this mere 12%, or 46 homes, so that 348 residents in our neighborhood will benefit. Thank you for your time.
Dan Bofinger.
I thought I was yielding my time to Mr. Carter, and I think you addressed my subject very well. Thank you.
Ken Folsom.
Hey, Ken Folsom, 3508 Casablanca Avenue. I didn't intend to say this, but I've actually got a half a Duke pole in my backyard, and I've had it for about 15 years. So, yeah, it's not going to go anywhere. You can come see it anytime you want. First thing, I'm going to do 3 real quick things. First of all, community, Don Cesar Place community leader, Betty Resnicki is going to be sworn in today, and you couldn't ask for a better person, so we're real proud of her and we're glad she's being sworn in. Second of all, I'd like to tell the city manager about a great experience I had with the city. I clean up on lots M and N routinely every week. I didn't get to it for various reasons. Noticed that the park at the Don Vista Park, the little park right next to it, a trash can was missing. There's a lot of garbage in there, a lot of bottles and things like that. I picked those up, but I called. The person who took my call transferred me to the Public Works Department, followed up with an email. Public Works person called me back with about an hour, said they'd get something out there in about, by the end of the week. But I was surprised. Today I got a call and the guy said, hey, I'm going over there, put it right there, and I'm going to trim it all up for you and clean it up. Guess what? He did it. Great job. And that's exactly how city government, small government should work. That's how we feel valued as residents. Third thing I want to say is I am not only a 30-plus year resident of St. Pete Beach, but I'm the election clerk at Warren Webster, and I've been the election clerk there for about 5 or 6 years. And although we did have a contentious race for mayor, I have to say that on election day, the behavior of the supporters of both camps, and they were there from 7 to 7, was exemplary, both inside and outside of the facility. A lot of people don't, and we got about 800 people that went through there, and we get a lot. That's a small facility, but there are a lot of people vote there. A lot of people don't realize that the majority of the workers that work in of the elections there, and I believe it's the same thing is true of the community center here, are St. Pete Beach residents. Not all of them, but the majority of them are. So your friends and your neighbors are running it on behalf of the election supervisor, and we're also supported by the city and the community. Our city clerk Amber, she comes to visit us, make sure we're okay, everything, and sees if we can help us in any way. The community, the church lets us park there. Church across the way, a community church there, lets us park there. And Public Works makes sure the facility is always clean, decent, and kept up. And last but not least, the residents, our friends, our neighbors, they do, they have the right attitude. It's never a problem there. They come, they vote. Commissioner Frislowski, he votes there every time. And we get everybody from new voters to the 93-year-old World War II vet who comes every time in his electric wheelchair because he feels it's important. It's an event that, in closing, I just want to say that I understand, Commissioner Gill, that you were talking about how we need to come together. If what we observed on Election Day is any indication, we're doing just that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Bob Rogers.
Hello, my name is Bob Rogers, and I am a 29-year resident of St. Pete Beach and First Palm Point. let me make this clear. I have no dog in this hunt, almost, because 25 years ago, I had the pole in front of my house undergrounded because I observed that it would be a hazard in a hurricane because the power line went right across the roof of my house, one side to the other. And many other homes that are in this situation have the same problem. However, like I said, I have no dog in this hunt because I've already done it, but I'm willing for my tax dollars to go for the benefit of the entire area. Now, I don't understand how the circuit works. I'm also an officer at the American Legion, and when the power goes off at my house, it goes off at the American Legion. So this would affect more than all of these people that Mr. Card delineated. So it's an important project for us. So and he's done a perfect job of explaining why we should continue with this. Today, in front of my home, Duke Power, not Duke Power, but a contractor was out there installing whatever those gadgets are that protect the electricity from going down the pole, whatever those, I'm sorry? Insulators. The insulators, yes. They were installing those today, so obviously they're moving right along with this project. So that's enough said about that. The second thing I would like to do, I served 11 years as chair of the Police Pension Board, and I've done other things to help the city. I would like to serve on a study committee or task force, whatever we'd like to call it, to understand and improve traffic flow on Gulf Winds, which goes into Boca Ciega. I think we use traffic stop signs and speed bumps too much in that area. I don't see that anywhere else in the entire city of St. Pete and in the area, where we have speed bumps and stop signs. I should say singular speed bump and stop signs on a very, very short stretch of roadway. Thank you very much for hearing me. Appreciate it.
Colonel Mike Greiger? Greiger?
Greiger.
Greiger.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Colonel Mike Greiger, United States Air Force, retired. I'm at 413 Hermosita Drive, St. Pete Beach, District 4. I hope we get a chance to know each other.
Look forward to it.
I just wanted to have an opportunity to address the new commission in 2023. Congratulations. And I look forward to assisting if I can assist, but I also look forward to you preserving our freedom. Freedom's very important to me, and I'm sure it's to all of the residents. What I would ask that you do is, as you craft ordinances and things like that, you consider that over-regulating citizens really isn't to anybody's best interests. We live in this free country, and that has been bought and paid for by a lot of blood. I ask you to honor that. As you've sworn your oaths, you've sworn to protect and defend our Constitution and our state constitution. I thank you for stepping forward and serving in this. I know it doesn't pay well, and I know you put in a lot of work. I really appreciate your leadership. I ask you to consider us, consider our freedoms, and always work to preserve those and not regulate us. Thanks very much, and I look forward to supporting you in your new offices.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right. Consent items?
I will make a motion to approve the consent items A and B. We have removed C from that.
Yeah, that's correct.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Frisowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Grill?
Yes.
Mayor Petrola?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. The new 7A, election of a vice mayor.
I would like to make a motion if that's okay, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to elect Commissioner Grill as our vice mayor.
We have a second?
Second?
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frisowski?
Yes.
Mayor Petrola?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. appointments to outside agencies.
So in your packet, I presented you with the current for 6 different organizations. If you want to talk about who wants to do what, the Big C and the Mayor's Council are typically the mayor. And then the second is typically the vice mayor. So I recommend that we continue with that. Other than that, you can decide what you want to do.
Mayor, if I could maybe give my reasoning for why I wanted to move that previous agenda item, and the city clerk kind of touched on it. The, probably the best page to look at, if you guys are on it, page 60, kind of shows that chart that they provided for us.
Page 60 in the packet, yeah.
Yeah, in the packet. So the Mayor's Council of Pinellas County, obviously, the representative should be the mayor, I believe, so that's, I think, somewhat of given. And I think the alternate should be the vice mayor. That's the reason why I thought it'd be good to kind of change this around. As the clerk said, the representative of Big C has typically been the mayor in the past. I don't know that has to be, but I'm good with that if the mayor wants to accept.
Sounds good.
That.
Happy to do it.
From there, I think it's really up to the way we want to do it. I've been privileged to serve on Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. I'd like to continue doing that, but if there's someone who wants to do that, I'm open. Other than that, I kind of defer to my colleagues.
No, for Tampa Bay Regional Planning, I'm fine with the way it is.
Does Commissioner Grass want to continue?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Why don't we start from left to right or right to left?
All right, so we have Big C.
Big C's covered.
Yes.
The FLC is the Florida League of Cities.
I'm sorry, can we go back to the Big C? So do we want to continue with the alternate as the vice mayor, Commissioner, or Vice Mayor Grill? Would you like to be the alternate for the Big C?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Okay. So the FLC is the Florida League of Cities. I'm okay to continue. If someone else would like to do it, it's okay with me too, but. Okay.
Commissioner Grass, are you okay staying as the alternate?
Yes. I
Okay.
will stay alternate there.
And then the Mayor's Council, we'll have Commissioner Grill and myself.
I got that.
All right. Commissioner Marone, any particular?
Yeah, I would like to do the Pinellas County Flood Insurance Committee.
Okay.
Good.
Great.
Yes.
Can I do the alternate on that?
Sure.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. And then the Suncoast League of Cities?
I'll stay primary there if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Marone, would you like to take on a second?
I'll be glad to do it.
I mean, I've questioned why we're members because we don't seem to be doing much. I know it's.
There's not a whole lot, no.
There's not, I know it's, I think the chairman is Mayor Payne from Treasure Island. We probably should, I mean, just honest, we don't really do anything with them. We haven't had much interaction quite at all, one way or the other.
What do you mean by that? The Suncoast League of Cities just hasn't been active participating, or?
We haven't heard anything, or?
No, I mean, I don't get any correspondence from them.
Okay, I was wondering, I didn't really hear much about it, but I wasn't the representative for the second, so I just kind of wondering, okay.
I'll reach out to Mayor Payne and see
Yeah.
if there's something, some way
I
I
mean,
can get more involved.
we're a Suncoast League. We should be, if it's
Yeah.
active,
Yeah.
if there's an organization, we should be there and we should have
I agree.
participation.
I think, it
just been
starts
very quiet.
sometimes with the leadership, depending on who is the president of that, and if they're not pushing to get agendas, but,
Yeah.
I think these things, as you know in the past, some of it's camaraderie, getting to know your own colleagues, so that when you have an issue, you know somebody to call and talk about, but when there is an issue, we can get together. The Mayor's Council has done tremendous things over the years. I mean, it's really one of the reasons why we've been able to underground utilities on Gulf Boulevard is because the mayors all got together to the county and said, we all do a lot for this county, and the Big C jumped in on that too. and said, we produce a lot of dollars here on the beaches, and there ought to be some return. And so that's when the county acknowledged that and got dollars. It took a long time to get it, but that's why the dollars that are supporting the undergrounding on Gulf Boulevard, or the penny from Pinellas dollars that go to the county, we're not using our own. We may be using a little bit, just bridge that gap. So anyway, it kind of goes along with the Suncoast League of Cities. It'd be good to be active, because you never know when you need to band together and have an issue.
Okay.
I have it. Do you want me to read it back to you, or just
Yeah.
read it back to you? Okay, so for the Big C, we have the representative as Mayor Petrella, alternate is Vice Mayor Grill. Florida League of Cities stays with Vice Mayor Grill as the primary, and the alternate is Commissioner Grouse. The Mayor's Council, primary is Mayor Petrella with Vice Mayor Grill as the alternate. The Flood Insurance Committee starts with Commissioner Marone, and the secondary is Commissioner Grouse. Suncoast League of Cities is Commissioner Grouse with Commissioner Marone as the alternate, and the Tampa Bay stays as it was with Commissioner Frizzlowski first and Commissioner Grouse secondary.
Do we have a motion to approve the board appointments as discussed?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Marone,
Approved.
Commissioner Grouse,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Frizzlowski.
Yes.
Mayor Petrella.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next we have appointments for this, sorry. Yes, appointments to the St. Pete Beach City Advisory Boards and Committees. How should we do this?
So, kind of like what we talked about with the resolution for the elections, one thing that I've been kind of mulling over with my staff is this item, one, it doesn't require a motion, right? So, my question really is, why are we adding this to the agenda when Commissioner Grouse doesn't get a say on who Commissioner Marone appoints, right? So, more often than not, it's a discussion between my office and you all individually. You can make appointments at any point in time in the year. We've had them sporadically with a couple of commissioners throughout the year. So it's not just a one and done. That's part of this discussion is, do you want me to keep doing this, or do you want it to be a discussion? Like, I met with Mayor Petrella one-on-one, he's newly elected, we discussed this. Met with Commissioner Marone one-on-one, we discussed this. This will be further discussion between me and them outside of this office to get those people in and appointed, and, you know, learn the ins and outs of the boards that they're appointed to. If we decide not to keep doing this, I propose then that when new board members are selected, a memo goes out to all of you with the new board appointments, their contact information, so that all of you are on the same page. Because really, I guess for me, I always want to understand, why are we doing something? Are we doing it just to do it because that's how it's always been done? There's nothing in the code that says we have to do it this way. If you guys want to continue doing it this way, by all means, let's do it.
I think one other point, and I want to just clarify for the residents who are here and watching. So each member of the commission has one appointee to each of the 5 boards that we have. And the term runs, per the guidelines, the term runs contiguous with our terms. But we can make a change at any given point in time. The person that we appoint does not have to come from within our district. Some commissioners like to do that, some commissioners don't. I mean, to me, we need to get the best person for the job, and whoever they are. I personally now will give my opinion. I think we should continue to announce it here in the meeting, A, so all the commissioners know, and B, so that the public is aware. So the public knows who, if they wanted to contact their person or from their district, who can they talk to on the beach committee or on the library committee, whatever it might be. really informational. But you're right, there's no reason, I mean, we don't vote on it, it's up to, it's our, this is one area where we don't have to have a vote, and it's our prerogative.
Well, one question that was posed to me during my one-on-ones was, what if we don't have an appointment today? What if they don't know who they want to appoint to a specific board today?
So for example, I'm not sure who I'm going to appoint to certain boards where folks are appointed right now. However, there's two critical appointments to boards that I probably need to make right now, because there's a Board of Adjustment meeting tomorrow, and there are applicants waiting to have their cases heard, and I don't want to put them off another month because I didn't make a call. So in that circumstance, I'm looking at that Historic Preservation Board next Thursday, huge agenda that needs a quorum. So I need to make a call on that. The rest, some of them meet monthly, some of them meet quarterly, some of them meet twice a year. I have a little bit more time. I'm all for what Commissioner Grill said, is announcing it so the residents know what and why. For example, why are you appointing so-and-so to the Board of Adjustments? And I can tell you, I just got on the commission, and they have a meeting tomorrow. And we need to have a quorum at that meeting because folks have applications pending. So I think it is good to announce it to the residents. So I'm comfortable with that. Obviously, I don't see any reason for voting because we're not really voting on it. It's their appointment. I don't know how anybody else feels.
No, I agree with it. This has always been handled as just more ministerial, where we're announcing who our appointees are. If someone's not ready to make an appointment, they just say, I'm not ready to make my appointment. But I think it is good to have it where we just announce it to the public. I think maybe the history, looking back at it, we used to have some boards that were, every one of our boards is a 5-member board. So we each have one appointment. Several boards used to be 7-member boards. So those were commissioned as a whole. We had to vote on those. Those no longer exist. So maybe that's why it's been done this way. But I was just going to announce tonight that all of my appointees are willing and ready to serve. They've been doing a good job, and I'm just going to reappoint them. I'm not even sure if I need to reappoint them. They're already my appointees until next year.
Yes, that's correct.
So if I could just jump in on this, I mean, Section 22-33 talks to this, appointments of members, and Amber's correct. I mean, you each all have your appointments.
Yeah.
If you're not ready to make an appointment, however, the person that's in that seat will continue on. So they continue on until you're ready to make that appointment. But the term for, let's say you choose a month from now to appoint someone, that term doesn't change. The term runs concurrent with the commissioner's or the mayor commissioner's term. So you're not, that's the cover for the situation you were talking about.
Except I left one of the seats.
Yes. You need to appoint for that.
I left the chair of the Historic Preservation Board.
Unique position.
Yeah, I left the seat.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Can't serve as both.
I cannot.
Yeah, just wanted to assure you of that.
As much as you'd like to.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I can tell you, I spoke with most all of my members, and I will not be making any changes tonight, and I misspoke. We have 7 boards, 5 people on 7 boards. So, just to clarify that. Somebody was paying attention.
Maybe we can make a small adjustment, because it is important that we read the individuals into the record so that everyone knows who's serving where and that it's part of the record. Maybe we can just amend it where we send you the list of appointees and then it's read in at the next commission meeting.
Yeah, that's fine too.
And then for the Board of Adjustment, at least the notes I got from the city clerk were that the person appointed doesn't take effect until April 26th.
But I have Dan Small is already there, and if he can just stay, which council said that he would remain, then he'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is, that's my,
And to Mayor Petrilla's point, what I discussed with staff and legal was, because of the nature of the Board of Adjustment, it's a quasi-judicial. And so my staff takes a little bit more care when educating them on the process and procedure. So even if you wanted to make a change, Our thought process and our opinion was to continue with the board for tomorrow because it is tomorrow. And the residents who have applications deserve to have educated people ready to go tomorrow. So that's what I had explained to Mayor Petrilla, that it would be better to wait so that my staff has time to educate the new board members.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Are you making an appointment for his story board?
I'm going to give
Okay.
remember the list. when
Because I know that we have that meeting coming up as well.
Next Thursday, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Action item 7C. The Don Cesar Neighborhood Water Treatment and Sea Level Rise Adaptation Concept Study.
Mayor, we need to go to First Avenue Fishing Pier.
Yeah, that's been removed.
No, I thought it was 7E, the Don Cesar
The Don
neighborhood
Cesar,
threats
right.
was removed, right?
7E 's
Okay,
removed.
so we need to do the First Avenue Fishing Pier, Mayor.
Yes,
All right,
and
7D.
7D is an award of a contract to Southern Road and Bridge for the rehabilitation of the fishing pier. The reason why this one is not on consent and it is on an action item is because the actual bid price that came back exceeded the estimate that we had and the budget that we had. We had budgeted $200,000 for this work. We do have enough funds in the contingency capital budget to be able to do this. But this is something that the community has been waiting for a long time to get this repair. The permitting process took a very long time. And what we're doing is basically creating a monolithic structure underneath the pier to provide the structural support for the continuation. It doesn't change from above. It doesn't change the width or length of the pier. You know, you're still going to have pretty much the same experience. I believe that we're adding a couple of fish cleaning stations and small little amenities like that. But essentially, it's just a restoration of what we have today. And I'll be happy to answer any questions on this issue there. I think Mike is here also somewhere back there. Yes.
I'm trying to remember, one of the delays we had was the ownership with the county, and the county had ownership in this at one point, so if I remember right, why are we having to foot the bill? And
That is correct. We went back to the first approval of the pier, and the request and the permit that FDP had was in the county's name for the approval of the creation of the pier. Subsequent to that, basically, we found correspondence that confirmed that the city had been basically taking ownership and maintaining the pier since then. And we were the ones who went ahead and executed the renewal of the permit. But it's been essentially a city asset for a long time. So what the county had was the original permit to put the pier in.
And what year was that?
Do you remember, Mike?
Approximately, what decade?
60s, probably.
Good evening, Mike Clark. I have the privilege of serving as your Public Works Director. And on behalf of my staff, I'd like to extend our congratulations to the newly elected officials. And the first question that you have asked me is one that I do not have an answer to. I apologize. It probably dates into the 60s.
That's good.
And as I understand the trail of events, there was some questions as to ownership because the rock pile called a rock groiner pier underneath it does belong to the county. But somewhere along the line, I'd love to know the history, we plopped a 10-inch thick concrete sidewalk on top of their rocks, and then we built a fishing pier out on the end of that, and it's just existed as part of city infrastructure ever since. And so it is now permitted by us, and after the delays of who owns it, which really wasn't all that much, it was really delays in permitting.
Right.
And the agencies that are involved in the permitting, our federal friends, had their issues and took quite some time and more time and more time. And we finally got to where we are today.
Yeah.
So I have a question. It may sound like an absurd question, but it does concern me a little. I would hate to spend the money and then later, when another issue comes up, the county says it's theirs.
We
we
got confirmation from them saying that they have no rights or no interest on this.
But when you
on
say
this asset.
information, when I look at property ownership, I think deeds, I think titles, I think documents that are executed by someone with authority that either confirms the transfer of an asset from one to the other. And I'm wondering if there's something that exists like that. So when new folks at the county come in, they say, I never said that, I don't know where that is, or you got that piece of paper, we own it.
Okay, we can work with legal to make sure that we get something executed with them prior to issuing the contract. So even if you award a contract tonight, we won't execute the contract until we get something that satisfies your request.
Yeah, well, I think it just needs to satisfy the city that they have something that says, yeah, this is ours. And you guys can't come later and try and claim it's yours.
Right. Fair enough.
I actually think it's the other way around. The rock groin, as part of the Corps of Engineers and county structures for beach preservation, came in first, and then the sidewalk and the pier came in after that. The county doesn't own the beach, has no interests down there, owns no land down there, doesn't do anything down there except provide water services. So it doesn't make any logical sense that they would have done what they did, because it had nothing to do with what they wanted to do, which was build the rock structure.
So just to follow on from Commissioner Marone's comment, if the rock groin degrades, is it ours to fix or the county's to fix?
It is absolutely the county's. That is a science structure. It is studied, it is monitored, it is managed and improved and maintained by the county.
And the paperwork, for lack of a better term, is in place that shows that. I think that's, Commissioner Marone, you're...
Some legal documentation.
Something that we're protected, that if the groin goes, we call them, hey, go fix your rocks.
Yeah, we found nothing inconsistent in any documentation during the permitting process or any of our conversations, discussions, and email transfers back and forth with the county officials. It does not mean that we have the answer to your question, and I think City Manager is on the right track. If we can go back and see if we can't find some evidence of ownership.
And if not, maybe they're willing to just give us something.
Okay, perfect.
Well, they're absolutely willing to give it to us. They consider it ours. There's no question.
So
Commissioner Marone is correct. Somebody 10 years from now can have an epiphany and change their mind, so might as well get a document executed now that they're agreeing with us that it's ours.
So for the motion tonight, would we be achieving all the objectives if we amended the motion to approve the project so it moves forward with the condition before we execute the contract, we get the right paperwork, for lack of a better term, in place prior to executing the contract? Will that help?
Subject to the review and approval by the city attorney, right?
Something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I'm good with all that, except that our residents have waited years for, I don't discount anything. So my only concern is, I'm involved in construction, and I know costs are still going up, and contractors will walk away from bids. This was the only bid that we had, so hearing all this, I agree with it, but not to jeopardize the start of this project. We had one bidder. So that's my only caution to it. I agree with everything that's being said, but I don't know how long it would take for that legal process.
It's really, it's running through my mind. I would, if I wanted to be super secure, I would go to the county commission and say, I want a resolution saying this is mine, but the chances of that happening is probably zero.
That's what I'm concerned about.
And so I don't know how you want to step this back to make you feel, as your city attorney, that's what I would want, is I don't know, they can't even do a quick claim deed on something like that, but, I can look at whatever documentation has been provided by the county, but I don't know what level of comfort you're looking for in terms of the
if it's a notarized
principle that
if it's a notarized document, that it attaches Exhibit A is some type of legend with what it is that's there, that's it. And if we can operate contemporaneously on a parallel track and do both, because we think as soon as we approve this contract, they're not going to start for 6 weeks anyway, and all we need to do is see if we can get.
Is this John Bishop? John Bishop would
Yes,
be the
that's
guy?
correct.
So if we get John Bishop to sign off on something, John Bishop's title is?
County.
Coastal Management.
Coastal manager.
He's the
county.
top coastal management guy, so a letter from him.
Yeah, he assumed Andy
Bishop.
Squires' position. He had been in the job for almost
Yeah.
30 years. I have
Smart guy.
conversations back and forth.
Something in writing on letterhead that we can say, okay, this is this guy with who has authority, and then we can work it on parallel tracks.
Right.
Because we know we approve it tonight, they're not going to start tomorrow.
Right. So the point is, we don't want to improve somebody else's property.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think these are all good points. there have been people that have been asking for years now, and even more recently, they were so happy. One lady who just loves fishing there, it's a great fishing spot, and she was just texting me, and I said, it's environmental issues and all that, but the good news is, we were hearing on the commission, she was like, oh my God, it's greatest news, even though it's still going to take 6 more months to get this thing done. She was still happy. I thought she'd freak out when she heard it was going to take 6 months, so.
Once the contractor mobilizes, I'm going to guesstimate 4 weeks, 5 max.
Okay, it does have
This is
here
a big
180
firm
days,
that-
though.
Yeah, this is a big firm that has the equipment to make this thing happen, and it's complicated equipment. This is not an easy project,
Yeah.
and that's why I think the other bidder was unable to respond properly.
Well, I didn't want to overpromise because it says 180 days in here, and my only other comment, and this probably is maybe too late for this, but just for future projects, at least in the contract, I don't see any liquidated damages. And I think for construction projects, we always ought to have liquidated damages because I've been doing this for a long time, and if a contractor has 6 projects going on and 5 of them have liquidated damages and 1 doesn't, guess which one they don't pay as much attention to. So I think you never want to have to use the heavy hammer of liquidated damages, but I think it's always good in construction projects to just put it in there to keep them.
I'm surprised we didn't have $500 a day. That's been a fairly standard.
I thought I've seen it before, so, yeah, and
Ever since I've been here, it's always been.
unless it was in the bid documents, but it's not in this contract, and that may be.
Go back and
but
reread them.
Either way. I think there's a motivated contractor. I read all the qualifications and all that.
There is nothing in this process that has me concerned at all about the performance.
Good.
Yeah, this almost seems like a small project compared to some of their others.
Yeah, it is.
Well, think of it as building a piling or a support structure for a bridge, going over to Tampa. This is one of those, and they're building hundreds and hundreds of those.
right.
So when I say they've got the slip form and the equipment and the ability to transport that concrete out there, that's big equipment, and they've got it.
Do we have a motion to award the contract subject to a letter from, who was it?
I think
From the county.
From the county.
From the county?
From the ownership of the property. I believe that's what Mr. Grill's motion is, right? I think you did make a motion to do that. Just don't think.
No, I was asking the question if that would,
Oh.
if that would resolve
Okay.
the concern.
Okay.
Yeah, I think after hearing from Commissioner Frizzlowski and hearing from Mike Clark, I feel comfortable enough if we're immediately taking action to get documentation to confirm ownership, that we can operate on a parallel track and we don't need to amend this action item, this motion, and we can offer it up as it's set forth here, and with the understanding that the folks, we just had this discussion with, they're going to move forward and expedite, the recovery of some document that's going to support ownership. And if that's the case, I'm comfortable with that after having that discussion.
And just to play devil's advocate, if it doesn't come back positively,
We have a problem.
well, then should we make it a condition on?
We have a problem.
But I also, second Commissioner Frizzlowski's comments. The residents have been waiting for this thing for a long time. We've all been waiting for this thing for a long time, but we need to do it right. I want to run the last 10 yards in the 100-meter dash and fall.
The guy with the solution.
Good evening, Matthew McConnell, Assistant City Attorney. I just want to point out, we do have an interlocal agreement back from 1983 with Pinellas County, along with a renewed submerged land lease from the state, speaking specifically on this issue. That agreement has not been terminated, so I just want to clarify for this that there has been an agreement in place for roughly 40 years.
That's good.
An agreement that
Has nothing to do with the cost of us rehabilitating it now, but it's an agreement that lays out the groin and an interlocal agreement between the city and the county on how to deal with the pier and the groin itself.
And in your view, does that satisfy?
I don't think an extra letter will hurt, but I just wanted the commission to understand that we do have an agreement in place specifically for this purpose.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's some added assurance for me.
Yeah, that sounds good to me, too.
And then, but I would be willing to move forward on a motion as is with the understanding we're moving forward on this parallel track as well, just to shore it up. And Commissioner Grill, I will listen to whatever, additional comments you have or suggestions subject to what Matthew's just offered us. And I don't know if it assuages your concerns, or you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, if our legal advice tells us we're good, then I'm good.
Yeah, well, I like the parallel tracks. I mean, we can definitely go and get new documentation that is kept in the clerk's office and public records and also Public Works and wherever else in the files we need to keep them, so that it's pretty clear that, if someone challenges us on this, we've re-upped our interlocal agreement that, what we're doing here. But like I said, I mean, it's hard to, my concern is the same as Commissioner Frizlowski, is you start pushing somebody to notarize something, and then they start getting, you get a manager or director of a department to notarize something like that, then they start getting nervous, and then they'll go want to talk to the county administrator, and then next thing you know, the residents are still not getting the construction finished. So, but we'll do everything we can to make sure that the documentation is as good as it can be.
Can we put something on the agenda for next month to get an update on?
You can put a report. Yeah, we'll do a report.
Okay.
Right, and as to the liquidated damages, we'll make sure that that's covered in there.
Yeah, just for the future.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm saying, yeah,
looks like it's a good
usually
company.
these are templates that we use,
Yeah.
so I'm surprised that we don't have them in there already.
So was that a motion?
Yeah, with that, I will move to authorize the expenditure of the $314,800 with Southern Road and Bridge LLC for the First Avenue Fishing Pier rehabilitation. Based on the discussion that we had, I'm satisfied with making that motion.
Second. Roll call.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frizlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you for making that happen. You make a lot of people that have been patient with fishing happy.
Taking its time, but it's getting there.
I actually have some good friends that got married at the end of that pier 20-something years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Small world.
It's a famous spot.
So the next item, I guess, is the item that got pulled from consent.
The yard wall. Yep.
So the reason I pulled the item is I wanted to have some further discussion on the map, and so just let me get the page number, that what we're doing, and just to be clear so everyone understands what we're doing, why we're doing it, and because it ties into the strategic plan and the beautification efforts that we talked about. I think it was the end of 18, from the residents committee, that the how do we beautify, I think the discussion point was beautification of the entryways to the city. And I participated, I wasn't on the commission or at the time or any boards, I was on a board along with Ms. Rusnicki, who's in the audience, on how do we beautify, coming across the Corey Avenue Bridge, the first thing you see is not so nice, because you see the back of the operations yard. And we had worked on, a few years ago, the entryway at the Bayway, looks an awful lot better. If FDOT ever gets rid of those beautiful orange barrels and finishes off the middle lane, it'll look even better, but we've beautified it, we've spent some money to beautify it, and this is an effort for beautification on the entryway coming across, called the middle of the city, coming across the Corey Causeway, and how do we balance that? Of course, operations team, Mike and his team, support us very well, and they need to do their work, and as Mike will always say, some of the work we do is not pretty. I think even in the last meeting, as we described the lift station at the corner of 55th and Gulf, it's a tough job and someone's got to do it. But so I wanted to know if we could see some artist renderings of it as we did. We had a lot of renderings from the wall that was put up at the entryway on the Bayway, the Don Cesar wall with the logo. What will this look like, so that everyone's comfortable and as agreeable as possible that this is the design, this is what we want to do, this is the look, the feel for the city. So that's why I pulled it. Before we discuss
Yeah, we don't have the renderings right now, so if the commission wants to then defer the item until we get renderings, we could do that. Essentially, what this is creating is a berm around the perimeter of the property with a wall that is going to be sitting on top of that berm and a hedge in front of that wall. So you will basically see just green when you're coming in westbound through from the bridge. All of the storage of materials, the waste, this disposal container that we have there, all of that is going to be now behind the wall, and basically making a lot of use of the old police station property that was there. But as we have grown, and we have really a lot of equipment that needs to be there and circulate through that, so it improves the circulation process within the facility as well. So not only beautifies the outside, but it does improve the circulation. But we don't have a pre-rendering, and we can create that. The idea here was that the contractor was going to do the design and the structural analysis for the wall, to go with that.
And the other question I had, and Mike, one more thing, is that, and City Manager and I had discussed, the area, if you look on the map, if you're in the packet, it's on page 58 of 219, the area to the right side of the picture, or the east side, the southeast, we've used that area a lot for events at Horan Park. Fire trucks come in, food trucks come in, et cetera, and we seem to be taking away a lot of that space, and how are we going to balance that?
That was also the sandbag filling station during the hurricane.
Yeah.
Thank you, all good points. Where you see the arc at the bottom is, as Alex described, I'll try to paint a mental picture for everybody. It will be a 4-foot tall, what we can call a knee wall, which is basically a small retaining structure, 4 feet tall. We'll backfill that with dirt, and then we will plant that dirt in a ground cover. And on top of that, there will be a 4-foot wide ledge. And then we will go in and I'm working with Parks to select an appropriate shrubbery that will fill in nicely, grow to about 4 or 5 feet above that. So we'll have an 8-foot, 9-foot wall of green space, of green. It'll grass up to the shrubs, and that's kind of what you're going to see. As we from the other point, as we go around, it's going to be an 8-foot tall concrete reinforced stucco exterior facing the pool, so that we will have a nice separation look between the ops yard, which is industrial, and the recreation center, which is, a playground. and that'll extend all the way around. The existing gates will remain. To the sandbagging operations, it's always been tight through there, and so we need to take a look at going back maybe to an alternative location. Egan Park has been used in the past very successfully. That's got a lot more space. Not that we're actually going to need any sandbags this year.
Not good.
And so, on the other side, there is, off the side of the picture, there is a little bit more space, 30, 40 feet or so of additional parking area that we wanted to hold back specifically for vehicles that support the events in the park. And we think we can fit, the ones that I've seen normally. And inside of it, we continue to operate, but we continue to operate more favorably in terms of the view shed.
Yeah, no, look, don't get me wrong, I have no questions from, we've talked about you needing more space in operations and expanding the ops yard, and absolutely, that's...
So that's the mental picture. If that's not sufficient, it's been
And I
going on
spoke
for
to
a while.
Jennifer, and she feels comfortable that we have enough space in the back area to put food trucks and whatever we need to do for events. So,
Actually,
thank you
we
for that.
also just installed a new, at Egan Field, we just installed a new basketball, half basketball court that can be used also for sandbag stationing.
And that was discussed when it was constructed, yes.
Correct.
Okay. That
And I would
answers my
like to-
questions, thank you.
So I would like to point out that this is Phase 1 of a two-phase project. The Phase 2, we're going to go back inside that building and bring it back up to the needs of today versus the needs of 1960, when some mayor who was here at the time built the structure. Yes, your name is on the building.
Wait, you're saying he was mayor in 1960?
Mayor Fritzlowski's name is on the wall.
Really old.
Not sure it was 1960.
But you're right, his plaque, his name is on that plaque outside the door.
And we recently renovated that plaque, so it's looking pretty sharp.
You do remember that, or did you know there's a MAT Foundation there where the police station was, so.
There's a who?
A MAT Foundation, it's a type of foundation as compared to pile foundations or conventional foundations, where it's a mat, it's about 4 or 5 feet thick of concrete, and the way you do that is you don't have to do pilings, so it floats as a mat.
Is it post-tension cabling?
No, it's just all poured concrete, so you're not going to cut into that.
We never even considered trying to remove any of that.
Right, and you don't need a foundation to need that, that's
No, we
better
do
than any
not.
foundation,
No,
so.
we're in very, very good shape at that location with what we have.
I figure you probably knew that, but
Okay.
I like the idea of the lower wall with the berm up against it and then planting on top of it, because you won't really be able to tell it's a wall from that, coming in, looking from the east or looking from the south, right? There's two areas.
Either way, as you enter or exit, when you look over there, that's what you're going to see is continuous green that flows into Haran Park.
I think it's nice.
I think it's going to be a tremendous improvement.
For sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Will there be any public comment on that?
A question about the procurement process. It looks like the city requested a price proposal from a specific construction company. Is that
Correct.
Am I reading that
And
correctly, or?
Yeah, from time to time, basically, we use what's called piggyback contracts, where we access in a contract that was bidded by another governmental entity. In this case, the county, has separated what is called job order contracts, where they select construction firms that will give them a price list for the individual items, and we can just go directly to any of those because they have already gone through a competitive process. And then we access those, and they give us the price based on unit quantities that we're providing on a fixed price schedule.
So I can see with the sanitary sewer testing that we did the same thing. Is that correct?
The smoke testing, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I can kind of see where that's a highly specialized company that would do that, whereas building a yard wall, there's probably a much broader range of companies that could do that. Just trying to understand the reasoning behind
skipping the...
Is really, right, is mostly expediency. This is not, in the construction world, $300,000 is not a big contract. So to go through the entire procurement contract for it, to select a company that is already going through a procurement process, that's where we will typically access this. If there was a $3 million job, we'll be putting out our own bid.
I'd like to maybe add a little bit to that. The job order contracts also come with a design element, so we eliminate having to do a design that we can then bid out and then have, folks compete against. And the construction prices within the job order contracts, competitively bid, will match or be very close to a bidded contract out. But what we do in a job contract is we do not have to go through the full design process because we can approve a design build flow, and it moves much quicker, and we have a really tight control over exactly what the product is going to produce.
So, City Manager, if I remember right, we've had this conversation, similar conversation in the past, and your explanation was these are countywide and state. Sometimes we piggyback off the state. I think for the fire equipment and some other equipment that allows smaller municipalities like our own to be more. I think you explained to be more efficient and not running competitive bid processes on smaller type projects.
100% right, and we are getting the prices that they are giving the county, which is a much bigger buyer. Right?
So small jobs tend to cost more when we bid them out because it's not worth a lot of their time to do the small. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct, yes.
It's not worth a lot of their time to do the small job. So if it's the small job, they're going to increase the price on us.
And if we can get access to a contract put together by a bigger entity that gives them a lot more work, and they have basically sharpened their pencil because they wanted to get the contract from the county or the state, then we do better.
Like health and care insurance, if I have 10,000 employees versus I have 8,
right,
I'm going to get a better rate.
Right.
All right.
And the county will bid these out on a routine basis, and they will award more than one. They have a minimum guarantee, so they're bidding these things out and telling contractors that are successful that they can look forward to millions of dollars worth of work in a variety of ways. Here we have our small little project sliding right in there.
So it seems...
It's a good question, though, because, I saw some of these numbers, and $270,000 to do a site wall, it seems like a lot. The problem right now is that contractors have too much work and they're throwing numbers and stuff. So, I balance it. I think it's a good question, though.
Well, where do the city, where does the city draw that kind of line of demarcation of we'll cull from the county or state agency vendors, but when it gets to this level, we're going to a full-blown bid
Typically
process.
around $500,000 is the sweet spot.
Okay.
Because on the fishing pier, which is about the same price, we did go through a competitive bidding process.
Because it's a very unique kind of work, right? Sometimes we can't find somebody who has a contract that provides the exact type of work. Because when you're piggybacking, you have to match the exact type of work that we're doing. So we couldn't get this contract from here to go and do the work on the fishing pier because it's very different work.
I understand, it was just...
Right. Yeah, right.
If you're saying that the cutoff is around 500,000, but this is 300,000, yet we have another project for 300,000.
You're 100% right. That's the general rule when we can find somebody, not when we have some unique work.
So if the pier was a paving project, you'd probably be culling from the...
we're piggybacking on paving contractors.
And as Michael said, paving has been problematic because comparatively we are small, and we've had difficulty. We don't need to rehash history, but we've had difficulty in getting paving contractors because, for us it's a lot, but for them it's not a lot.
Maintaining contract support in a small municipality over a period of years is a bit of an art in partnership, and the companies that work for us, we have to we have to make it to, so that they want to work for us. You know, there's a profit margin in there for them naturally, but it's not as big as it is if they're working for a county or a state. And so for us to lure a high-quality contractor in on a piggyback contract willing to extend their prices to us, that's a win. That's a win for us. So there's a lot of discretion that we ask for when we select the methodology for procurement. There's no hard and fast rule. $500,000 is a good number, but depending on what it is, smoke testing for an example, bidding it out, it might not get you, most likely will not get you the results that you're looking for. And so, as we understand the environment out there of the contracting and community, we intend to select a procurement methodology that will provide what we believe is the best outcome for our municipality.
Thank you.
And I think commodity purchasing, just last point, commodity purchasing is easier. For example, the playground equipment we bought for Horan Park, we piggybacked, I think, off of Manatee, if I
Correct.
remember.
Yeah.
And that's very easy. It's out of kind of like a catalog purchase. This, boom.
Audience comments?
Thank you for letting me speak, and congratulations on your new position.
Thank you, sir.
Anyway, I'm the St. Pete Beach astronomer, which most of you know who I am. Mr. Grill knows exactly where I live. And I have direct view across the water from this piece of property that the city's going to build. Mr. Clark knows kind of where I'm coming from. I just want to make sure, it's a minor thing, but in these designs of this wall, the operations yard wall, and any landscaping or anything that goes in there, and I've had problems with some, not problems, but it's a thing about astronomy, to keep the lighting designs appropriate for not letting them get into the sky, to pollute, make light pollution out of them. So I just want to make sure that whoever's involved in the design, that I know it's minor, but watch any lighting that goes into that whole park area, for that matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So do we want to wait on plans or renderings or?
I see we make a motion.
No, I'm okay to move. He answered my question, so.
Okay.
Good.
So I'll make a motion to approve the price proposal under the Pinellas County Job Order Contracting Contract with Caladesi Construction Company in the amount of $270,042.06 for the operations yard wall expansion.
Second.
City Clerk, roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frislavsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Kraus?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Are we on item 10? Items for
Yes.
discussion?
Yes, Mayor. We are with Commissioner or Vice Mayor Grill added a discussion here.
Duke Energy.
Duke Energy. So the reason I added this, and you heard residents from my district, and it is also my, as he said, it is also my neighborhood, my street. I had more calls this morning from irate residents than I can think of any other day, quite frankly. I thought we had an agreement with Duke that they would wait. No one was happy when we lived with the two-pole situation, and the association did write and ask for a delay. And as Mr. Card said, Duke came out and did the work today, and they're going to continue to do the work tomorrow. Someone came to my door and told me, I talked to the supervisors, and I spent, just so you all know, I spent a lot of time with the city manager, and he was, calling Duke and trying to help and to get through the discussion. But I think we owe Mr. Card a response. But the reason I wanted the discussion item is we continue to run into this repetitive problems with Duke. We had it with Frontier. And sometimes we do it to ourselves, but let's focus on the outside agencies for a while, and we don't communicate to residents, and residents don't know what's happening. Why are there trucks on my street? I will tell you, and I've told the city manager, I get calls, he gets calls. Why, what are they doing on my street? I don't know. It doesn't reflect well on us as a city. Forget about reputation. You know, I can take a punch, I don't care, right, if I'm doing the right thing. But residents need to be aware so they can plan. Like, you know, the gentleman came and said the electricity will be off from 9 o'clock where you have to move a transformer. Okay, but you didn't know that in advance? I mean, this is my full-time job, so, you know, I'm pretty flexible. But those residents who may work at home or have medical conditions, they need to know just so they can plan. Everybody appreciates the work. Well, not the work that Duke's doing today, but people appreciate the work. So what do we need to do? And I'll pick on Duke. We had it with Frontier when they were doing, you know, their cabling of the city, so that we get a heads up. We know what's happening. We know so people can plan and we can communicate. Because nothing frustrates residents more, and then I'll just speak for myself, it frustrates the heck out of me when I have to tell a resident, I'm sorry, I don't know. And they say, well, why don't you know? And I need to call the city manager. But we should know. I think we owe it to our residents. And Duke, I know, look, Duke, we know we've had problems with Duke. They're a regulated monopoly, you know, and you know, the state utilities, I think it's a state law that allows, the utilities don't need to get our approval to come in and do work in our city. They can just pop in on us.
And that's the way they treat it when you approach them in the truck. But it's our property. We can come out and do whatever we want to it, even if it's right in front of your house and we shut your power off for 10 hours and we don't tell you.
No, I understand that, but I don't know, we need to get somebody with a very low serial number or lots of stripes on their arm in here to explain to us, because it's repetitive, and I think we need to do something.
What communications does Duke have with the city, if any?
And I'll tell you, Chris, the Commissioner Marone, excuse me, I asked the supervisor, I mean, these are subcontractors to Duke, so they're just going to do what they're told to do. They were very friendly. We had good conversations. I mean, I know it's not their fault. And I said, you didn't know in advance that you were coming out? He goes, no, at 8 o'clock this morning, he goes, we're based in Newport Richey. We're told, come down, you know, you're going to work in St. Pete Beach today. Okay, heck of a way to run a railroad, but, you know, I just look at it, the impact to us, as city manager knows, I'm that shy, I'll pick up the phone and call anybody, but the people we're calling don't seem to be the right decision makers.
And you're right. I mean, Commissioner, we're always playing catch up, and it's a horrible situation to be in. Part of it is disorganization from Duke. They, you know, send somebody, you know, okay, tomorrow you're going to go over there, and there's really no advance notice. Now there are some cities that have, you know, an ordinance that regulates when people are going to be doing work on the street, and it requires a permit for them to come and do work. And I don't know, adding more regulations sometimes seems like too much, but in this case, I think a lot of you guys who've been on the desk for a while know that we have tried to improve the communications. We have had them here on that podium saying, we'll do better, and you know, it just doesn't happen. So I think that we need to just put it on our next priority list to develop a regulation. We're not interested in charging money. No. Okay. What we want to know is when you're going to be doing the work, where you're going to be doing the work, when do you plan to start, how are you going to be notifying the public. This issue about cutting somebody's power without notice is highly irresponsible. I mean, like, you know, Commissioner, you were saying somebody who could be on a medical equipment piece, right, that, you know, you need the electricity to run it. If you're 95 years old and you don't have air conditioning in the middle of the day, that's not a good thing. And they're not providing that, and it's maybe their own disorganization, but we need to have a tool that if they do that, we can go and show up and say, you can't work until, you know, you have done X, Y, and Z, whatever we decide that the conditions need to be. And I'm not a big regulation person, but I think in this case, we have really reached the end of trying to work with them, and we need some teeth in terms of how we regulate this, because they have easements on the along the sides of the road on those rights of way, they are parking in our street, right? You think about it, they're parking on a road, every time they're going to go and be doing this. So we do have the ability to establish some regulations to get through a permitting process. We'll make it quick, we'll make it easier, we won't charge them, but I think we need to have a tool to help us with that.
So one of the first conversations I had with the city manager just prior to taking office was sitting down and talking about, one of the things we had a discussion about was underground utilities. And a discussion about not just the Gulf Boulevard plan, but what about, as one of your folks said, your constituents, is the neighborhoods, where, yes, in Paso Grillo, on Paso Grillo Way, we got them undergrounded. We also got the undercarriages of our cars torn up for 2 years while we drove up and down those tortuous roads. But we did not get any new power line, or any new undergrounding in Vena. We did not get undergrounding on any one of the side streets. We have a trapeze right now of wires in Paso Grillo that P.T. Barnum would be proud of. The city manager discussed with me the enormous cost involved with that, and that we're working on Gulf Boulevard. So my thought is, in that context, if we're going to have a relationship with Duke on Gulf Boulevard and their vendors, is that the opportunity to leverage that relationship to stop them from going into the neighborhoods and doing work at hours and at times when they shouldn't be, or without prior notice to us, notice to the residents?
I wish I could tell you that it does provide leverage. It doesn't for them. The cost of what they're doing on Gulf Boulevard, I think they're getting paid between phase 1 and phase 2 is going to be $7-8 million. Is such a drop in the bucket in terms of getting leverage. It's a big number for us, but for Duke Energy, it's not.
Does it create a line of communication to a point person?
And we have lines of communication, but the lines of communications that we have are not in control enough of Duke, and some of it is out of Duke's own making in terms of how compartmentalized they are, that even the people that we're talking to regularly don't know some of the things that are going to be happening. And we have now somebody on staff who understands the electrical undergrounding projects, somebody who used to work for Florida Power and Light. She knows all the right people and everything else, and has developed relationships with them. But in a lot of cases, those people don't know exactly who is the one making the calls as to what's going to be happening next. So I think it's going to be something through a regulatory process that we're going to have to go with them. But let me go back to the first item that Commissioner Grill brought up, and is the issue of the 3 Pines Point that was discussed tonight, because what I understood from the discussion that we had when we deferred the item was that we wanted to defer the item until we could take a look at the entirety of the nut that we're going to be dealing with. So it's not that projects were not going to be done, but we wanted to get an idea as to how much it will cost to do all those things and how do we pay through all of it. So staff is working on those numbers. We are going to be having a budget meeting April 20, thereabouts, Vince? 24, right, April 24. And this is going to be one of the discussion items that we'll bring to you. Very ballpark number in terms of what it will cost to do the entire city.
So you're saying you're working through the process right now of getting an idea of what it would cost to go from one end to the other?
Correct. Yeah, and then we will know if it's 50 million or whatever the number is, then we'll know what that is and how much we can do when.
Would that give us greater leverage at that point? Since 7 million isn't enough.
Maybe if we end up doing that much. And and we will have option when we do that we may or may not use Duke Energy. When you put in that much work, some cities have just hired a completely separate contractor to do the work, and Duke basically just goes through an acceptance process of the work. As the commissioners that were here, I did recommend to go ahead and do this little piece of work, just because it's kind of a very awkward spot, where half of the Palm Point Islands were, underground, and the other ones were not. But I can tell you that 70% of Vina del Mar is underground, and and some of the major corridors are not. So we do have a couple of awkward areas where portions have been done or not. Now, the other part that is unique about Duke, they have different groups of people that work on different projects and different source of funds for the different projects, and there's not a lot of communication in between those. The specific funding that they're using for the first, for the Three Pines Point area, doesn't allow them to work with us and just augment the difference in costs, which is really what we try to do, and we did. So the undergrounding that we did on District 1, where we said, if hardening is going to cost this much and undergrounding is going to cost this much, well, what if we just pay the difference? Right? In here, they're basically saying, no, we have this hardening is going to be paid from these other funding sources, and that funding source doesn't allow for any variations from that. So the fact that they are going forward with this project, it really doesn't put us in a better or worse situation that what it will cost to underground that section. So if later on we decided that we need to underground that section, we're not really getting the discount, in essence, which is really what our hope was to be. And if you talk to like most corporations and business people in the world, it would just make a lot of sense that we should get the credit for what we're already planning on spending, and we should just cover the difference. And logically, okay, that's a good plan, but that doesn't really work with them, because that funding source that they have is only for this and cannot be augmented, replaced, modified in any way. So I know it's a little frustrating for the people in the area, but I think if the commission decides to do either wholesale, undergrounding or targeted undergrounding, which is going to clean up some of the areas where they have done 80% of the work, and then we start cleaning some of the areas, and the commission can set priorities, and we can start saying, well, this is how we start targeting some of those things, and we can figure that out at the meeting. We did budget like the gentleman said, $1.8 million over the next 5 years. It's not a lot of. It might sound like a lot, but in terms of electrical undergrounding, it's not a big number. It just, the idea of that was just surgically be able to do, a few projects here and there. But we'll have more discussion with the commission at the budget meeting.
So if I go back, and thank you for that update, and I'll update the constituents on that, but what do we do for the discussion item? What action can we take with Duke to get better information so we can keep our residents informed? And if, as I said, if it's not our account rep, big organizations, some of us have worked in them, they have a manager, they have a director, they have a vice president. Let's invite them here and have them talk with us.
We can do that. My recommendation is start working on an ordinance to regulate them. That would be my recommendation, is start finding something that puts some teeth onto it.
We need some teeth, absolutely. I mean, because, and this is just not for my district, I mean, it's for the citywide. We've all have experienced this, and whether it's Duke, or any utility provider.
Right, something that applies to all of them, right?
Right.
To me, it's disappointing what I'm hearing, but there are other times when Duke has been responsive.
Right.
Just a couple months ago, I had called the person that you recommended I call, Chiquita Clark, I think her name is.
Yeah, that's her.
She was really good, responsive. There was a resident who was trying to get new service, and they were in a bad spot with it, and she called me back, or we emailed, I can't remember which, and within a couple days, and she explained the process, which then I explained to that, residential group. And she called me back and gave me an update as to when their engineering was going to be done and when they were going to do the work. It got done pretty quickly. Then she called me back, which I was like shocked, and she said, are you satisfied? I said, yeah, it's all done. Thank you very much for your help. And then there are other times during hurricanes, when you're really trying to kind of desperately get information from them. And can't remember the name of the gentleman because he's now moved on or moved up.
Jeff.
And Jeff Baker, right. And he was very responsive during hurricanes. As the hurricane's approaching, he's kind of giving me updates and things. So there are times when Duke has been responsive, but I'm not downplaying what you're talking about. That's very
I agree with you.
Frustrating.
There are examples, and I should, let me go on record, there are examples where they have come, they changed the transformer, started sparking, they came at 11 o'clock at night by knocked down door, said we got to turn power off at 12:30, power was back.
And that's great, but at the same time, they shouldn't show up unannounced and cut off your power. That's just, that's beyond unacceptable. So,
I'm okay to start, so yes.
Yeah, I hate to use the heavy hand, but that gives us the leverage, and then maybe when you're making the contacts, you don't have to, or maybe you do have to, remind them that there's an ordinance that they have to go by.
Okay.
With some exclusion for emergency work, of course.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
And then reports.
Well, I just wanted to say welcome and congratulations to all of you. I look forward to working with you. It's been good so far, meeting with the new mayor and the new commissioner, and of course, always Commissioner Grill. So I look forward to that, and you have my cell phone and my email if you need to get a hold of me. I also wanted to welcome Andrew back. I'm happy to see his face, and I wanted to let him know that Matthew did a good job working with my office in your absence. So that's all I have.
City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just have to agree with Amber said, and we are very, very happy to work with this new commission and looking forward for to serving you and accomplishing a lot in the next couple of years. I wanted to remind the residents that we are starting our strategic planning process. This is the opportunity to help set priorities for the city for the next 10 years. We have the residents meeting on April 5th. Then we'll have a meeting with the business community in May, and then we will be bringing some recommendations to the commission in June for the commission to adopt those and start incorporating some into the budgetary process to fund the priorities set up by the strategic planning process. So that's going to be going forward. The other item that I had on my agenda was Duke, but I think we already covered that, so
yeah,
we're good with that. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. City Attorney.
No, just happy to be here and welcome and congratulations to you two both for your elections. And it's been a couple of years since I've been here, and I've worked with a lot of different commissioners, and it's always fun and exciting to get to know new people, and I find hopefully we can develop a good working relationship with each other. So congratulations, and it's good to be back.
Good to have you back. Commissioner Grouse?
Nothing.
Commissioner Grill?
Couple things in District 2, all things are good. While we're talking about Duke, and I had sent out an email to my constituents, but for those who are watching, the undergrounding work continues on Gulf Boulevard. I know that our PIO had sent out, and on our webpage, the updated schedule for the undergrounding of these 2 weeks. We are between 55th and 64th Avenues. as they continue to move across the boulevard. I also want to put in another plug for the Adopt a Drain program that the city rolled out. You can sign up, the information's on the city's website, and we can all, this is a way for, an easy way for everyone to pitch in and help keep the city running and keeping our storm drains clean. And because we know eventually, yes, we don't need any of those sandbags, as Mike Clark pointed out, but it will rain, and we will definitely have rain. You know, I guess I just wanted to mention something that really disturbed me. The city manager had mentioned to me that there was some vandalism of personal property in the Lido Park, or what was Lido Park, car park, and with spray paint and keying of personal vehicles and some comments made, you know, comments related to activities in the city, and it just was very disappointing to hear. I mean, that's just really not who we are as a city, and it's not, and I mentioned it earlier, I mean, it's not the path we need to go down as a city. We need to work together. I mean, we can disagree, and I'll be the first one to sit here and say at times I disagree with me and my colleagues or city staff, but we don't need to be disagreeable, and attacking personal property is just completely unacceptable. And I hope this was a one-off, and it doesn't continue. And then within district, speeding seems to be a concern within district. I've shared some emails from residents. It seems to be, I'll call it a whack-a-mole problem. We have speeding problems in one area, so the parking team and the roads team work in one area, and then it moves to another area. It seems, and it's this, I think part of it is this time of year. Within my district, the areas from the streets that go westward from Gulf Boulevard towards Upham Beach, as the beach traffic, because the weather's getting better and people coming in and want to go to the beach and spring break. There was a traffic accident, I believe, at 4 in the morning, but the speeding, for example, on 70th Avenue seems to be problematic these days. Residents, we've contacted the staff, we're going to do the traffic survey, but it just seems to be, it's not getting better, and you know, we don't want to have, to one of the speakers earlier, certainly we don't want to have a city full of speed bumps and you know, chicanes and all the great traffic calming devices, but we've got to do something, because God forbid there's a worse accident. So, but I get the support from the city staff, and we'll just have to address it, get the data, do the studies. If those who don't know, the city has invested, I think, in 2 of the traffic survey study, I don't know what you call them, but the old one where you had the rubber strips on them, well, there are no more rubber strips, they're radar devices. Right. Because people told me, well, I didn't see that. Well, that's because they're not rubber strips anymore, like the old gas stations. I'll date myself, but with that. Anyway, so that's what I had. Thank you very much, and again, welcome to our new members.
Thank you. Commissioner Kozlowski?
Thank you. Welcome, Mayor Petrillo. Look forward to working with you and Commissioner Morone. So we'll have some good success and keep on improving the city. I only have one question, and that's that I think we tentatively set a joint workshop with the Commission and the Planning Board for April 11th at 4 o'clock, and I don't know
I believe that day wasn't going to work, right, Amber?
Oh, so it's not going to, okay.
I just sent your email to Jennifer and was waiting to hear back. I don't think I ever said it wouldn't work. Did I say that?
No, I think I was holding it open. But what happens is, if it doesn't get on my calendar, I get other people.
He couldn't, I believe it, because Commissioner Morone couldn't make it, right?
I can't make it.
Oh, that's good.
11, right.
That's
yeah.
fine. Actually, that's good for me, because I got something, I got a conflict right now, so unless I
we got to look for another day, because that is one workshop that I want to make sure that everybody's in.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
This is very,
that's good.
very
So that frees up my schedule. Okay, so I'll just look forward to another date.
CBD.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Morone?
So just, you know, I'm new, so nobody knows really what to expect from me in my district. I just want to let everybody know, the residents know, folks that are listening, watching, that that's what I do every day in my district. It's one of the reasons I'm sitting here instead of belly aching to my neighbors I'll put my money where my mouth is and sit my fanny in the seat and see if we can get some stuff done. So I'm confabbing with the residents about the issues that they have. I'll be speaking to the department heads and to the city manager first to see if we can reconcile the issues that we have. Among them is illegal parking on the side streets. I welcome anybody to come down here. You can actually start coming down by around 10 o'clock on Saturday morning through 11 o'clock Sunday night. And it's just a parade of cars circling and circling. And then they just say, I don't care about the ticket, I'm parking anyway. And they change their kids' diapers in front of my house. They change their clothes out in the middle of the street. They decide on Fifth Avenue that there's no walkover, so they'll walk across the sea oats and make their own pathway, and they've done just that. I know, Mike, you've probably seen it. I know Jennifer's seen it. It's the only block that doesn't have a walkway, so our guests, our visitors have decided that that's what they should do. They've decided that tents and umbrellas strapped to park benches along the seawall from 12th to 1st is an appropriate way to enjoy their Saturday or Sunday afternoon instead of going to Fort DeSoto or the beach. So we have, problems that we're going to work on together, and we're going to see if we can get resolved. We've got ordinances in place that we can probably enforce. We have great folks in code enforcement. We've got great folks in law enforcement. So I think, that's one of my objectives, is to work really hard with the city and the heads of departments to see if we can get some of those issues resolved so that we never really have to hear about it here.
Thank you. I appreciate I appreciate the additional grace in working at the Kings and officiating these meetings. And so if at some point I say something that's not at the right time or bring something up at the inappropriate time, I please let me know. City clerk has been very good in keeping me posted and making sure I understand, what belongs where, what the flow should be. City manager's been great in kind of keeping me up to date on some of the developments, and city attorney has been instrumental. So as part of the report, actually, Commissioner Marone, that's something that I've heard countless times from residents in District 4, the parking being a significant issue. I was wondering if we might be able to get a report at some point in the future, just so that we understand how parking enforcement works because I've heard from some residents that we stop enforcing after 5 o'clock, for example. Some others say they don't. Some say they don't enforce on the weekends. It'd be maybe helpful so we understand when enforcement happens and how it happens, if we're sufficiently staffed in that area. Looking at the numbers from the parking ticket revenue that we generate every year is close to $300,000, if I remember correctly. If we need another part-time person, or again, it'd be helpful for us to understand just the reporting, so we know exactly who's doing what and where. That would be much appreciated. And then the other thing that I have, and this is, again, if this is not the right time to bring this up, this is on the advice of, I don't want to blame somebody else for what I'm about to do, but I was told this is the appropriate time to bring something up. And so what I wanted to bring up, during the last election we had, I think the last time we had this many people show up for a vote was more than 10 years ago. And in the process of going through the process of campaigning, I had the opportunity to speak with hundreds of our residents over the course of many, many months. And one thing that came through loud and clear was that our residents are concerned about the future of St. Pete Beach. They're concerned about the state of our traffic. They're concerned about the state of our congestion. They're concerned about the safety in our streets. And they're concerned about the potential for diminished quality of life for the people that live here. And so to me, it seems that we have a very clear mandate from our citizens that we undertake a full evaluation and update to the St. Pete Beach Comprehensive Plan. This is not going to be an easy task. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of work and commitment from our commission, from our staff, from our residents, assuming that the commission is open to actually doing the review. And, I think as elected representatives of the residents of St. Pete Beach, we have a unique opportunity here to say to our residents, you have spoken and we hear you, and we are here to help implement the ideas and concerns that our constituents have. And so I would ask that the commissioners join me in respecting the wishes of our voters and our residents, and so that we do undertake a full evaluation and update of the St. Pete Beach Comprehensive Plan. And so to that effect, I'm going to make the following motion, if that's all right. Okay. The motion reads as follows, and I have copies if anyone wants to read it. The motion to conduct an evaluation and appraisal report of the St. Pete Beach Comprehensive Plan, including future land use categories, density and intensity of land use, and critical development standards to complete a full evaluation and update of the comprehensive plan. The City Commission is to appoint a comprehensive plan review committee to facilitate the process at the next regularly scheduled commission meeting, and the city attorney is to draft the appropriate resolution establishing a moratorium on all large-scale redevelopment requests, including zoning changes and conditional use applications during the pendency of the comprehensive plan review by the next scheduled regularly commission meeting.
So maybe I'll just make a point of order and ask for some help with that. Typically, well, first of all, I appreciate, your suggestion and the motion. And generally, I will go along with a portion of it, but when this has not been noticed to the general public, to have a motion like this, that's the whole reason why we have agendas that are published ahead of time. So all due respect, I would hope that makes sense to not only you, but my colleagues, and I don't know if our city attorney would want to opine on that, but I would go along with once it's noticed properly, a review. I'm cautious about a moratorium because I think there are all kinds of questions I would have with that I don't know that the city attorney would be prepared to talk right now, but once it's noticed and properly noticed, that then gives our city attorney, maybe the city manager, others time to be able to prepare to give advice to us so that we could act on a motion like that.
So I think, to follow up on you and Mayor, the motion that you've just made, verbatim, all of it, I think should go on as an agenda item for discussion, all of it, so that city attorney has time to reflect on each portion of it and explain to us the legalities, what we can and what we can't do, what the moving parts to that are, because it involves a lot, and then he can give us feedback on the moratorium issue, the appointment of folks for this comp plan review, and I think it would give me time, because I have had the opportunity as a board member at the Historic Preservation Board of doing a comp review plan in District 4 for the Historic District, the CRDEA. That's ongoing. That's included hiring consultants and having workshops. So I'm comfortable and familiar with that format, but maybe there's another format that works better with this scheme and works better with your motion. So I'm agreeable to having something like that put on our next agenda item as a discussion item so that we have time to vet. But I would like it to be comprehensive so that your motion, as you've just read it, goes in, so it's not stuff that gets added, so that we can get as many answers to questions as possible.
Yeah, and there's a lot in that package, and I think, and agree, excuse me, that we need additional information and answers and the ramifications of what was proposed, and give staff time to review it and provide their opinions to us, because there's things in there that I heard that potentially could expose the city to other unintended consequences that we've got to weigh out. You've got to take risk in life, and we've got to take risk in business and what we do, but we don't want to do this haphazardly. And I'm not diminishing. I mean, when I say haphazardly, we need to take the time to study it. I'm also want to point out that we've been discussing the comprehensive plan and a review of the comprehensive plan since last October. And we have been pushing, I've been pushing for this joint workshop. That hasn't happened. We scheduled it. It got delayed. It was going to be at 4 o'clock today, but of course that probably wasn't the appropriate day or time, given the, obviously, 2 new members and et cetera, so, and not having being sworn in. So we've been talking about this. We do need to do it, but I also don't want to do it in a knee-jerk reaction. It's your conclusion, and I will say it's not, I'm not 100% sure that the election results came out the way they did based on one issue, which is put a moratorium on development. That may be one of the reasons, but there, I think, from my discussions with residents, there are other reasons. But that's fine. We do need to look at the comprehensive plan. I've sat here and said many times, a plan is like a business plan. In your company, you wouldn't wait many, many years to review your business plan, otherwise you'd be out of business. So comprehensive plan, any plans that we have, strategic plan, et cetera, we need to go through all these plans and revalidate that they make sense, or they don't make sense, or they need change, times change, needs change, et cetera, like we do with the voting districts or lots of stuff. So I think we ought to wait.
I'm not comfortable at all without getting more information, and I mean, this lady said this was just almost a surprise, and it's just, would be way too much, I would think, to make a decision on without a lot more review and a lot more discussion.
I mean, I do appreciate the comments, and just, Commissioner Gill, it wasn't haphazard. I know you didn't mean it.
I didn't mean haphazard. I don't mean to diminish.
And so, just, you know, is it all right if we talk about, I mean, City Attorney and I did have conversations about this, and part of the language was drafted this way, so it wasn't without forethought or just random. I also, you know, if nothing else was important, is to bring it to the forefront that we can have a discussion about it. And I certainly appreciate and understand the necessity to have additional time, you know, and notice so that we can talk about it. So it would be all right if we, you know, Commissioner Marone, if we happy to provide this and put it on next
Yeah, I
agenda.
think it needs to go into the record so that it's verbatim and ends up verbatim the discussion item that allows the staff and the city attorney to actually work on that language, because you have some precision to that language, and it was well thought out, and it was written down. So I think it needs to be verbatim in the record, and then there's no, well, I thought I said this, or I thought I said that, and well, that's why I'm giving you this opinion, because you said this, and now we just get it down. We'll be in the record, discussion item.
Well, I think it will be verbatim, because we're being recorded, and the city clerk does very well with the minutes. But I would also want to make sure, before we say, oh, we'll put it on the next meeting, that we give the appropriate time to city staff to go through and do the analysis and be ready to present the right review. And I don't want to, I have no view if this is a 10-minute exercise or a 3-week exercise, but obviously it's important, and we'd ask the city staff to work on it, but I'd like to give some leeway for the staff to say, okay, we can be ready at this date, so that we get the best information that we can to make the best decisions that we can.
Right. I would just like to point out, in my practice with commissioners all throughout the years have always been to be able to be a sounding board for legal advice, to talk about things, and also to maintain confidences. so that when any of you talk to me about anything, I want you to be comfortable that you can call me and talk to me about this, for example. And Mayor, certainly you're entitled to keep that privilege to yourself or to tell the rest of the commissioners that you and I have had these conversations, but I certainly didn't initiate this. This was your idea, and you asked me to assist you with it. I didn't provide it. It's not my place to tell you I think it's a good idea or a bad idea or anything like that. I was simply trying to assist you, and I'd be happy to continue to assist unpacking this very large idea that you've put forward. But I wanted to make that very clear that when any of you talk to me about anything, I don't want anyone to think that I'm hiding anything from any of you. It's just that if one of you calls me and say, I've got this idea and I want to put it out there, I'm to the extent that the legal issues are there and I can help you with it, I will do that. And it's not, I'm not going to call any of the other commissioners and say, hey, so-and-so had this and that and whatever. So it was merely to help you with that. I want to make that clear.
And then I'm sorry if it sounded like...
No, it didn't.
No, it's certainly, I'm the one that initiated it.
Yeah.
But again, also making sure that we utilize the resources that we have in the city attorney.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do it, and I'm happy to continue to do it between now and the next meeting if you guys want to continue to kind of unpack this and get it on to an agenda, so that it seems like what I'm hearing is that there's some interest here, but you want to hear more about it and know all the, because there are a lot of legal issues in my mind that are going through all this that I think for simply the sake of due process and public participation really need to be unpacked in a public meeting, but yeah.
But before we get to before we get to the motion, isn't this what we would discuss in the joint workshop that we've been trying to plan for the last couple of months? Because, I mean, I want to be clear what we're going to do. We're going to come back and unpack this motion so that there's another motion in 2 weeks, versus are we going to sit down and proactively review the plan jointly with the planning board, and then set, as we know, this is not a 3-hour exercise. This will be, we've talked before, but this will be a very long exercise. So I thought this was the objective of the joint workshop.
But if you listen to the motion, it includes a moratorium. Is that what your workshop was supposed to be, is a moratorium on building?
Including, right. The workshop is to include all 3 items.
So there's 3 items.
Yeah, he mentioned 3 items. One is the revision of the comp plan,
right,
to
an evaluate
density and intensity of use and all that. So we're going to be discussing that. The creation of a new board to look at this, and we're going to be discussing that, and the moratorium. So all those 3 items, plus a background as to what do we have, the current comp plan, and how do we got here. All of that is supposed to be.
And we have work underway with Kimberly, we have work underway with, is it Kimberly Horn who's reviewing our comp plan?
That's a reconciliation only.
Yeah, but Kimberly Horn is doing a technical review for compliance with state and county, so it's very different.
That's a technical
That's really the technical. He is really trying to get to the meats and bones of the comp plan, and we have spoken to different consultants. We have an idea as to how much it will cost, how long it will take. So we have a lot of information already from that side, for the workshop, and we have an agenda. So the quicker we can coordinate your calendars, it might, give you, the 5 of you, the correct information to make decisions on, the motion with the 3 parts that he's got on the motion. So the quicker that we can,
Which is why I was pushing for this workshop for.
I know, but we also knew that there was going to be changes in the commission. We knew that District 4 was going to have a new commissioner. So we are here, and we're ready to meet as soon as we can clear a calendar. So I think that is going to help clarify in your minds kind of the questions that you might be having, and gives you the opportunity to ask any questions so you can come to the right.
So is the motion now the motion to move forward with the workshops that we were supposed to?
No, we've got, I think we need to address the motion, if I'm correct, we need to address the motion that's on the
The
table.
motion can die for a lack of second, but,
There wasn't a second.
no,
But I
there's no
think
second,
we're
so
all
it can just
agreeing.
die.
Didn't go to vote, but, okay, or. we didn't
Right,
ask
well,
for-
there was no second to put it to vote, so, but we're all here, so does everyone have access to their calendar where we can talk about having a workshop then? Instead of me having to sit on an email and wait, and then get back to you again and
We
wait.
need the planning board?
The way that it was done prior for the 28th, it was based on the city commission's availability, and then it was communicated to the planning board. So if you're ready to do it now, we can get it. We're not doing the 11th, what about the 25th?
Right, but again, I want to make sure that the staff has time to prepare and understand and get ready for this meeting. I mean, I'd like to have the meeting tomorrow morning, but I know that's 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We won't be ready, right? I'm anxious, but I know we won't be ready to have the right discussions. And understand really that we'll have the discussions, but also to have staff advise us on what the ramifications are, one way or the other, what we do.
Well, but one of the things I also heard as part of the thought, I'm not sure why, but maybe you could explain it, was to have a committee. Typically, the planning board, that's what the planning board does.
Sure.
So it might be a little bit awkward if there is going to be another committee, it's not going to be the planning board, to have that meeting with the planning board. I'm not sure what maybe you could explain the thought process.
So I'm happy to explain all 3 points, and then, maybe that'll help. So the first point, looking at the comprehensive plan, 200 pages, it's been, the last major revision was because of a lawsuit, not because of community involvement or the commission's involvement as much. And then, so it's been 15 years since we've had a significant revision of the comprehensive plan, and a lot has changed in those 15 years. And so I think it's past time that we take a look at the comprehensive plan, reconcile the different parts. There's many parts that address the same issue multiple times, and sometimes there's inconsistencies there. So I think it gives us an opportunity to take a look at a comprehensive plan and have, updated studies. When you look at the Florida statute, my understanding is it's not just, Commissioner, Mayor Petrillo wants to do this, therefore we're going to do this, but rather there's a requirement that we do, studies and analyses and so on, and then, that we propose changes based on that, plus the community involvement aspect as well. So that was the reason for opening it up. The second component of that, establishing a temporary, called the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee, was because the Planning Commission already has responsibilities, and yes, they could potentially slot into that, but I think it might be helpful to have a separate committee that addresses one issue specifically, and they can spend 100% of their time on just the comprehensive plan review, finding the right consultants, doing open houses, doing community events, doing surveys, and all the other things that are required. My understanding is it would still need to be run by the planning board.
That would be correct, because
so
the
they
planning
could-
board acts as the local planning agency under state law. So any changes to the comp plan have to be run by them, yes.
So, again, the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee, and that's part of what we can discuss, how would that, what would be the requirements, what would be the, the qualifications, what would be their duties. And then the third component of the moratorium, and this was based on discussion that we had at a city commission meeting in October of last year, that the moratorium, and again, understanding that there is, potentially a way of, we need to look at it very carefully of how it's worded and how it's implemented, understanding that the thought behind that was, and again, part of the discussion at the commission meeting in October, that if we do not implement a moratorium, the process might take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, could take, maybe a year. Maybe one of the things that we should look at is setting a timeline so that it's not just an open-ended, but rather, if we put a moratorium in place, everybody knows, okay, by this deadline, whether it's a year or so, we can have some resolution. But the understanding was that the moratorium would be a good idea and potentially a requirement, so that we avoid having a mad rush of of plans, maybe incomplete plans, maybe plans that aren't fully articulated, having all the necessary requirements being submitted to the city, and then inundating our staff, having whoever's submitting the plans, not knowing whether they're going to fall in the old and the new, whether the plans are incomplete. And so the moratorium was part of the strategic process of, if we're going to the comprehensive plan review, full review, then might be a good idea to also implement a moratorium so that we allow the process to complete, and then we can lift the moratorium. So that was the thought process.
Moratorium on all building in St. Pete Beach.
Large-scale development.
Large-scale.
So if we look at
Define large-scale development?
Yeah. Because when you say moratorium, there might be people out there thinking that I'm getting ready to build a house.
Right.
And does that include me too?
Right.
So if it's more clearly defined than that, then I would probably need to know that,
Yep.
folks.
And that was part of the language.
Understood.
Yep.
So back to the date that the city clerk asked about, she floated the date of April
25th.
25th.
Of April,
It would make my job easier if we could all talk about it right now instead of
Yeah.
making me be
April
telephoned.
25th?
Yeah. April 25th at 4?
Yes.
That works for me.
Yes.
Yep.
So where did the budget meeting go?
Monday?
24.
24th.
April 25th works for me. That's before the commission meeting.
Correct.
But I'm still concerned, so we're almost a month out, but I think, are we going to have another motion for the next meeting to try and put this moratorium through?
Well, it isn't the moratorium that we're looking to put through, it's to review the comprehensive plan. The moratorium is a feature.
We've already said, I'm still trying to figure out the problem we're trying to solve. We already said we're going to review the comprehensive plan. We put there's a motion on the table which I'm assuming has died at this point, for the 3 items, but I don't think we're ready for the next meeting. So I'm just a little out of sorts here. I mean, I'm okay with the meeting. As I said, I'd like it 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay, so are we talking about the workshop is going to be discussing what the mayor has brought up, or are we talking about doing it at the next meeting? Because, first of all, let me just be very clear that a moratorium is put in place in order to kind of maintain the status quo, if you will, while the city solves a problem that it has identified and is trying to rectify it with legislation, planning, whatever. That's a general concept. So you really need to have a meeting to discuss what it is the problem, so that your city attorney can draft an accurate, and it may have to actually be done by ordinance, now that I think about it, but draft an accurate ordinance to enact a moratorium that specifically targets the issue, the reason for the moratorium. So you can't just say, okay, well, large-scale development, that's what the moratorium's about. Well, why is that? Is that the only issue? I mean, maybe there's other issues, I mean, that I'll just hypothetically say, we've talked in the past about lot combinations and splits and maximum sizes of houses and characters of the neighborhood. I mean, is that something that we want to pause too? Because, so I guess my point being is that we can't just say unilaterally, arbitrarily say we're going to have a moratorium on large-scale development when the problem hasn't really been, identified enough. It doesn't have to be completely scoped out, but it has to be identified enough to be able to say, yeah, we have to put a moratorium on this. For the reasons that the mayor said, is you're going to have kind of a rush to get inside the barn door before the barn doors close, and vest your rights. That's what the point is of having a moratorium, is to sort of not to keep people from getting those vested rights with the issue that you're trying to solve. See
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
I saw this workshop as initiating the discussion where people can talk about what the concerns are. I mean, I'm cautious about a moratorium, I'll tell you that right now. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, I am too.
There are all kinds of legal implications, property rights implications, private property rights that come to mind, and everything else. But I'd like to understand a little bit more as to what is trying to be accomplished. What became clear to me during the election process is a lot of people said to me they hadn't even read the comprehensive plan. They really didn't understand the comprehensive plan, and even more, they didn't understand the history as to why previous commissions made certain decisions. And those previous elections were all based on these issues. This has been a hot-button issue for 20 years, development, and there have been a lot of people elected or not elected because of these issues. So just like you're feeling like you've been elected on certain issues, of which that could be a primary one, which I would agree. Others got elected, put in that last comprehensive plan. There's a lot of frustration that led up to it, as you know, as a city attorney, to come to that compromise plan, I would call it. And it was based on a lot of economics, because it was generally a way of allowing hotels to be economical compared to condos. That's really what led to the comprehensive plan through all these years, was that given things being equal, people won't build hotels, they're going to build condominiums. If you ask developers, they would love nothing better than to come in, build a condominium, sell it, create an LLC, sell it, and leave town. And that's what was happening all over Florida. And St.
That's exactly what's happening now, though.
Well, and St. Pete Beach stayed ahead of that to a point where it tried to equalize it and allow for hotels, allow a developer to come in and say, I feel like a hotel would be viable economically compared to condominiums. So I just want to be careful as we make these decisions in terms of not losing sight of that, because it could turn into the other type of development that we don't want.
And just to add to that, I have some residents concerned about the condominium development, because in the condominiums, and we have one big one who does it, walls off their private property, which they're allowed to, and then there's zero access to the beach.
Right.
So you've got to...
People who live in condominiums go to Publix and shop. They don't support the rest of the businesses out here on the beach. The restaurants and the shops and things like that, that all goes away. So you change the dynamic of the whole beach.
So I think there's a lot of work we need to do. I am also concerned if we don't do it right, and as I said, we've got to look at it. I want to make sure our actions protect the city, because the numbers, if we do it wrong, and they're much bigger than any reserves that we have in place if we do it wrong. Right? To be blunt, if someone drops a lawsuit on our head because they don't like what they do, it could bankrupt the city. And we just need to make sure that we go in with eyes wide open, and I'm not saying we're gonna just jump in haphazardly, to use my word again, but we need to be sure. I don't want to expose the city to that kind of risk without knowing more.
But I do welcome the discussion. I think the discussion is good. It's a big issue here.
And at the very least, as we grinded through the comp plan as it related to the CRDEA district and the historic district and pastoral overlay, we continue to run into those, I'll call them technical issues, where there was redundancy, there was inconsistency. A lot of it was housekeeping, but it's really good to go through that process and do the housekeeping and the house cleaning, because those little ambiguities, I'll call them, can result in misapplying the comp plan when somebody comes with a permit and we're misapplying it. And, well, I understood it to be this way, I understood it to be that, well, let's just we have an opportunity to make it crystal clear. So I think that it just never hurts to look at it again and see what we can do or make better.
Yeah, and if I could also, my understanding, maybe so I can clear on this, is, so there's two things. Mayor, your proposal is very different than what has been taking place with Kimley Horn, which is more of a technical cleanup process. But as you know, every 7 years by law, local governments have to do an evaluation appraisal report to the state, which is a fuller evaluation of your comp plan every 7 years. So the state, so planning in itself is supposed to be ongoing. It's not just like I've got a plan and put it on the shelf. So the state adopted a law that said every 7 years you have to review your comp plan and submit what's called an EAR report. And then if there's some changes that need to be made, they're EAR-based amendments. That was the state's way of saying, don't just make this plan and stick it on the shelf and have it create dust. That's not planning. And you guys know I come from a planning background. So it's my understanding that the mayor is proposing more of an EAR evaluation and appraisal of the whole comp plan. And he's right, comp plans are supposed to be based on data and analysis. So planning is really, and it says even in the city's code for the planning board, their first thing is to be responsible for the comp plan and to be looking at changed conditions. As conditions change, you change your plan and whatever those conditions are. Right. And so it's an ongoing process. So that's what my understanding is of Mayor, and I'm just vocalizing it because I want to make sure that I'm hearing correctly what your thought process was. It was a larger evaluation of the plan, and you mentioned densities and intensities, which is really for me like the kind of the, I don't want to say red flag, because those are, cities and counties have an absolute right to plan, an obligation to plan. And moratoriums can be a perfectly good legal tool if they're done correctly. But when you're talking about densities and intensities, you could be changing things that would also have to require zoning changes. If you're talking about densities and intensities, meaning units per acre or setbacks or things like that, because your LDRs are what implements your comprehensive plan, and your future land use element is really where your densities and intensities are set. So it's a big thing, and local governments are required to do it. I think the EAR report is due for this city. I believe it's this year. It's the summer.
It's June or July.
So maybe that's fortuitous, that you have to do it anyway. The state doesn't have the same kind of, they don't take the hard look that they used to when they were the Department of Community Affairs. And now they just make sure that you submit it and everything's in there, the table of contents, whatever. They don't do as much as they used to do. But again, statutes, the Florida statutes are the minimum requirement for comprehensive planning. Doesn't mean the cities can't do a better job than what the statutes require them to do. So I'm just trying to put that out there to make sure that I understood that that's what you were talking about.
Yes, it's a more thorough, comprehensive review and reevaluation of the plan. Again, it just seems like we've, not to place blame on anyone, it's just, however it happened, it seems like we haven't really undertaken a substantial reevaluation in a long time. And this might be the time and the opportunity to do that.
I think city attorney is part of that, and I don't know if our assistant city manager is still in here, but we also, there he is, Vince. We also have to take a look at the whole tax base, and as Commissioner Frislowski talked about the economic, when this was designed, you were involved, I wasn't here, but the tax base of the commercial properties versus residential properties, and I don't think we've ever, we had the tax assessor, Mr. Twitty, in here last year, and I don't think we ever came to a conclusion or agreement. I think there's a segment of the residents that don't accept what Mr. Twitty said. But we've got to work through that, because the comprehensive plan and the densities and intensities and the commercial development was based on a set of facts and a view, my understanding, that how the tax base would go, and that tax base would be beneficial to residents. So if we're going to change this piece, we need to understand and look at the impact of this piece, the residential piece, and I looked at the assistant city manager, our city controller, on that, because we need to understand that. And there is an impact, and that's per the design of the comprehensive plan. And we just got to get the numbers straight. Whatever they are, numbers are numbers. But we need to get it straight, and I think that's a big piece of it, as well as the potential, as Commissioner Frislowski pointed out. We've got Burke-Harris laws and property rights laws, and we know that there's case law that sides with property owners. And as I said, I just don't want us to. The numbers are big, and bigger than we have in reserves. So let's just go in eyes full, wide open.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I've been hearing all the discussion, and we haven't even touched the surface in an hour. Okay, and I'm concerned that we are allocating 2 hours for this workshop.
That's what I was going to say.
I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
I think that either we start at 3 o'clock or we move the start of the meeting to 7, because this is maybe the single biggest thing that we do for the next couple of years, and to try to jam it into a 2-hour session where even talking about the items that we need to talk about, it takes an hour.
Right.
I don't know how your calendars allow you to maybe come earlier, or we keep the commission meeting very light and we'll start it at 7:30. But I do think we need at least 3 hours for this. That would be my recommendation.
If I can make one more comment, and then I'll withdraw the motion, and then we can just, I think the motion as it is, it doesn't specify all the different items that are required. So the first part is, we are to undertake a review of the comprehensive plan, and then the commission we can decide on the different components of, what is required as doing that. So the first part of the proposal is simply that we begin that process with establishing a comprehensive, plan review committee. We can then look at individually, we say, okay, we're going to establish one, and then we can set a timeline for 1 meeting, 2 meetings in the future, where we can then look at, what are the qualifications, what are their requirements, what are their duties, and so on, just like we would with anything else. And then the third part of the moratorium part, the verbiage was that we give it back to the city attorney to make sure that the language is drafted in a way so we can have the motion that says we're going to instruct the city attorney to provide us the language that he feels best appropriate. So I do agree we can use 3 hours to discuss it, but I think the individual components, we can have a conversation and we can understand what the ramifications are and so on, but I also don't think it's necessarily going to be a 3-hour discussion for each individual components because of the way that they are laid out. As in, we're going to undertake a comprehensive plan review. Here's how we're going to do it. The first part is the first step is making the motion, and then agreeing or not agreeing to do it. Same with the review committee and then the moratorium.
Well, I can tell you, I don't agree. I need to understand the review committee more. We have a planning board. They are the ones who've been tasked in our ordinances. I mean, it's online, we can all read it, and they have responsibility for that. So are we...
It's not being done right now.
Oh, so now you're saying you have a concern with the planning board. So then, do we have the right people on the planning board, or have they not been given the right direction and their priorities are wrong? So as a reaction, we're going to say, I don't think we should just sit here and say, let's create another board. Fix what it is, if we think there's a problem.
Sure.
And define it, and go fix it. Same thing when we have with the historic board. I mean, any of our boards, we want to make sure we have the right body, not just anybody. And if we don't have, it's up to us, right? We had a discussion of board appointees earlier to make sure we have the right body. So when we look at a pension board, we will look for people with a pension background. For beach committee, we look for people who have beach stewardship, for people who have maybe environmental, who have some background in environmental, or on the planning boards, the financial board, they have a financial background. All sorts of things to get the right body in there. So I'd want to understand that more as opposed to deciding, well, okay, we need another board. And I understand your three pieces, and yes, it's very good that we just define it three pieces, because, I like to understand what's the problem, let's put it in the box, and then that box, next box, next box. So I just think we've got to do some more work and have more discussion. And I don't think that's, I agree with the city manager, it's a long discussion.
Every single time we've had a workshop for Historic Preservation Board, and Matthew, I think you were at all of them, we ran out of time at every single one.
But we got to start someplace, and that's what a workshop's for. is
So
to
we
start
will
talking
talk a
about
lot
this.
more, we will talk a lot
I
about.
don't know about all of you, but I could do it I could
I'll
start.
come back in 12 hours and 5 minutes.
Start earlier.
I'll come back tomorrow morning.
I can
All right.
start at 3 if everybody else can.
I can start at 3.
Yeah, we have a commission meeting at 6 that day, so.
So everybody's agreeing to 3 o'clock?
Sounds good. Maybe we can bring in pizza at 5:45.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Nice to know. I
We
hear
get
this a
something to
lot
eat,
whenever we do workshops. If we end right at 6, I'm sorry, I'm the one that's responsible for setting it all up. I don't have time for that. So if you want to eat something, you need to kind of think about that, right? 5:45 would be best.
Right.
You could eat while you're having the meeting if you want, but
Yes,
please help me.
yes, thank you. Thank you for keeping us fed and awake and
Yeah.
making sure we have the right nourishment to make the right decisions.
Yes, thank you.
Do it from 3 to 5:30, take a break, and have the commission meeting at 6, unless everybody wants to delay the commission meeting till 7, which I'm open to either way.
I mean, honestly, it will depend what's on the agenda, because we have a, we
can keep the
we have
agenda
a 10
light.
we have a 10 PM
Yeah.
curfew, so.
I can work on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We there?
We,
We're getting there.
anything else? Meeting adjourned.